Do you want to introduce yourself or anything, or do you want to hop right into it? Or
Yeah, people probably know who I am. I'm Taylor Lorenz. I'm a journalist. I cover the content creator industry and online influence. I write about basically online culture and like the influencer economy. So a lot of it's like entertainment adjacent.
Mhm.
And then I also cover like sort of the political, like politics and business and culture related to like influencer stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. So obviously you've
I don't think he's been proved
an article
infected
that's blown
animal.
up quite
It's
a
a
bit on the
legend.
internet, caused
Yeah.
a lot of people some grief, me included. Okay, who are upset. And then obviously we've got a lot of favorable coverage from.
You weren't in the program though, right? You weren't in the program.
I don't know. Was I in any of the documents? Maybe I was one of the dark
No.
money recipients. No, I wasn't personally, but I'm on the. I would say I'm on the same team as a lot of those people. So, I guess. One of the things that I'm kind of curious about. I guess the first question before we dive into it is one of the questions that's been posed a lot by me and other people is why not ever.
I'm on the
contracts
chorus
themselves?
side.
Because it feels
G-Free.
like obviously there have been
I
a
think
lot of creators
chorus
now
is
that have
pretty
come out
neat.
responded saying that a lot of the claims weren't true. I think you've replied to them that the replies aren't necessarily rebuking anything you've said. But I'm curious, why not just publish like parts
It's
of the
such a
contract?
good question. Oh, it's such a good question. And it's something that I get all the time. You know, when I reported, for instance, on Mr. Beast's years ago, before all the Mr. Beast stuff came out publicly, I wrote a big cover story for the New York Times about Mr. Beast's labor practices and these really restrictive NDAs he was signing people to and some of the other stuff. And you heard the same thing from like, publish the receipts, like publish publish the contracts. And this is something I think people have gotten used to because of social media and because most of the sort of content that they're consuming is maybe through YouTube or through like social media content where there's this like receipts culture, right? Which is great in a lot of ways, where people are sort of showing evidence on screen as they're talking about things. So I wish I could publish like 100% of our reporting material. I feel that way about all of my stories. But we have sources. So in order to report this story out, and how I originally found out about this story is actually from people in the program themselves. So people in the program reaching out and being like, hey, I feel weird about this. I think you should write about it. Like, I'm part of this program, but I want to essentially like be a whistleblower and kind of like draw attention to some things that I have problems with in the program. So we have to protect these people's identities. And one thing that we heard from one of our sources is that the contracts themselves might be watermarked with weird spacing. And so there might be some identifiable things like that which is something that's totally common, by the way. Like, companies do this all the time. They actually do this with internal emails as well. So, whereas we used to get these things, especially in tech journalism, you'd like get these emails like, ooh, internal email from Meta. Like,
Oh,
here
I
it is,
see, Raj.
screenshot. Now companies have gotten smart to that. Obviously, if you're a company, you want to know who's leaking your stuff. And so they'll put these weird little things in, like an extra space here or something here that
Dark
sort of
Neos, the
differentiates
contract wasn't
thing,
clear that it was
each sort of,
predatory.
like,
The Wired
person's
article
contract or
claims that it
person's
is. That's
email
what
or
we're trying to get
whatever
to the bottom
make
of.
it identifiable. So we just want to be really careful and protect our sources. That said, many people at Wired reviewed the contract. We had a lawyer go through it, of course. Like, no one's disputing what's in this contract, and nobody has been able to disprove what we've reported on. So, for instance, these creators that are like, well, that's a lie. Our contract doesn't say that. They also have not published the contract publicly. But what they could do, even if they didn't want to publish the contract publicly, is they could go to Wired and say, here's the real contract. It doesn't say what Taylor's claiming.
Yeah, Louis, I don't know why
And
they
of
don't
course
just
they haven't
transcribe
done
it.
that
I guess
because the
people wouldn't think it's
contracts
real.
actually do say, our story is factually correct. So I know that there's lots of misinformation about the story, and I do think people have taken, I think a lot of people also, because it's paywalled, are making a lot of like wild assumptions, like based on the story, to sort
She's
of
probably
speculate on
right. A
of
bunch
things.
of
But I would
crazy
encourage people to
leftists
actually read
refuse to
the
pay for it,
story,
I bet, because
is
they don't know how to look
pretty
at it through an
straightforward,
archive
where
if they don't want to pay.
reporting on sort of like what the contract says, if that makes sense. But that's why we can't just come on and not just by the way, our reporting wasn't just based on the contract, right? We also had recording of an entire Zoom
Thrag,
call where all of this was
100,000 a year is a
discussed.
lot
We
of
had
money.
screen recordings of all of the group chats where all of these influencers were discussing the contract and discussing the program and discussing the nature of the program. We have internal emails from the company about the contract and about the program. We have negotiation. We have copies of receipts of emails and text messages during the negotiation process. So we have a lot more than just the contract. And of course, we have the testimony of the people that are in the program themselves who have spoken to us. So we have a lot of reporting. But yeah, unfortunately, that's how a lot of journalistic institutions are where we.
Yeah, Louis,
we
some people might have
like,
redlined it for
operating
specific
by
people.
the same
That's true.
principles as I think like the way the rest of the internet does. But I wish we could, because I totally understand people wanting to see the contract, and that's why I've encouraged these creators to share the contract. I think it would just
Scammer, 100,000 on the West Coast is not rough. Yeah, you can't buy a house. It's still an absurd amount of money.
So here are a few questions. So the first question is, if you had to guess, how many of these contracts do you think you saw or got to read through?
A few. Yeah, a few. I mean, there's a few tiers of the program, right? So, and we talk about this. So and we have contracts for multiple tiers. So most of our story is focused around the highest tier paid.
The accelerator
tier, $8,000 a month, whatever one, yeah.
Yeah, but we've seen all the contracts, for the different tiers, and compared them.
Mohammed, they're talking about the article. It is in the
just,
description.
Open up two contracts and look at them side by side, or overlay them to see if there's like weird spacing or watermarking that happens.
So there are slight differences, and also there's identifying info in some of them. So yeah, that is what sort of originally made us a little bit nervous.
Because for the identifying info or for slight differences, so oftentimes for journalistic outlets, rather than showing you an actual thing, they'll show you like a reconstruction. So this is really common when people are reporting on text messages, for instance. You're not actually seeing a picture or a screenshot, but they can reconstruct the text in a program and then show you like what it would look like. Yeah. So I guess I feel like a lot of things that would be put to bed for people's questions about some of the claims in this story is like just a reproduction basically of some of the clauses.
I would
in the
love to do
contract.
that. I actually have advocated
Good
this
shit,
for a long
Zach.
time.
Good big.
And it's so funny because this is something that people got really mad at me for previously when I said, like, I had a previous story about text messages and I was saying, why don't we just write the text messages? And we do in the story, right? We do reproduce the text messages.
Yes, online scammer houses are too expensive, but the problem is that, not that 100,000 is not a ridiculous amount of money.
But I agree. I think it would be great. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that for whatever, this is ultimately editorial judgments. There's reasons why they don't show source material, but I agree. I would love that. I think for honestly, the burden of proof.
Okay, real quick, for anyone who doesn't know, I am on the side of, I don't think Chorus did anything that shady other than maybe some influencers weren't reporting that they took some money, but they were not getting their influenced insofar as they weren't changing their opinions. They weren't not allowed to talk about Israel, Gaza, all the things that people are talking about, like the worst parts of it seem to be completely speculative. I'm going to see if Taylor can clear that up at all, but sidewise, I think this article was pretty misleading. At the very least, made a bunch of people believe misleading things.
In chorus. So they don't, and they continue to say that this is a public program. So, they're free if they feel that we are not representing the contracts correctly, put them online and let people decide. But so far they have not been able to disprove that.
Would that be the standard though, that like if anybody writes a story or makes a claim about a particular company's contract, then that company is always forced to publish their contract to disprove the claims?
They could just reach out. No, they could just reach out to Wired and say, hey, you guys misrepresented this, XYZ, and Wired obviously has the contracts, right? So they don't have to do it publicly. They can do it behind the scenes, but they haven't done that either. And so I think that's the thing, is that they have just been unable to refute any of the facts of our story. And I understand, it's frustrating for them, but the few, the bits of information that have come out have confirmed our reporting. But yeah, I mean, if they aren't going to do it privately and they aren't going to do it publicly, I don't know what else to tell them. But
when you say they aren't going to do it,
go away,
I feel like a lot of creators have come out and have there have been several claims, I think, that have been explicitly refuted by Brian Tyler Cohen, by David Pakman.
Well, they can refute them, but they have no proof to refute. So they can go online every day and say that the sky is purple, or whatever they want to say.
He needs to bring up, because I think this is a claim in the article. I have it copied.
With the facts of our reporting and the facts of our source material. And so if they provide counter, if they can debunk something, or they could say,
creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and cut off financially if they acknowledged they were part of the program. I think that is totally false.
I don't know if you're formally hired by Wired or if you do freelance, but if I were to make the claim, Taylor has a contract with Wired and they have a clause saying that anytime Taylor publishes, she has to use the word "and" 47 times in her story. Now you need to disprove that. How would you even disprove that claim? Would you just have to publish your entire employment contract? How would you disprove the claim that there's not a secrecy clause, or disprove a claim that that there's not like content direction given by the company. I don't even know how you would begin to disprove that claim beyond like
What do you
publishing the
mean?
entire contract.
What are you talking about?
I think Brian
Wired
Tyler
has
Cohen just
lawyers.
has
They
different
have people that
views on
review the
Gaza. I don't know if
contract,
that's because of the
and if
money.
these
Also, he
content
wasn't taking
creators
money. He was a volunteer.
Want to dispute anything in our story, they can reach out and they can say, hey, here's the proof that shows that this is false. But so far, they have not provided any proof that shows.
The problem is, if it's wrong, if it's proof that they weren't influenced or weren't told what to say, it's going to be the same wording in the contract that they send that Wired already has, but Wired interpreted it wrong or in a way that is misleading.
That directly, in the sense that they have not proven anything false. And so I just don't know what to tell these people other than this is months of reporting. We have, in addition
He's
to
a
the
co-founder,
contract,
yeah, Raj.
all of these other documents that back up the facts of the contract. And that's why ultimately there are no corrections on the story. Now, is there a lot of false stuff around the story that people have taken our story and sort of speculated on things? Certainly. And I hope that we can get into sort of debunking some of that. But in terms of the facts of the story remain. And I think you'll note too, I don't know if you go by Destiny or Stephen on stream, but Stephen, okay, sorry. You know, one thing that they've attempted to do, you know, since this has come out, a bunch of nonsense, right? Of course, they're going to make it all like they're going to start conspiracy theories about me and stuff. But one thing that they've done repeatedly is make this claim, well, Chorus is public. Chorus is public. So we've always been able to talk about Chorus. Here's the website. Here's whatever. No one is disputing that, right? Chorus, I myself have written about Chorus publicly before.
Right.
There's an entire New York Times story by Ken Bensinger about Chorus that's public. So no one's disputing that Chorus is public. The unreported part and the stuff that our story focuses on is this funding system. And so that was the non-public part. And I think that is.
Sorry, guys, I'm trying to click on the article so I can show that this. I don't think this part is true.
Ethics of dark money, there is a debate around that. Some liberals feel that we should use dark money. Some liberals argue against it. Like that, you know, that is a debate. But I think what most people would agree on if you ask the public, and certainly this is what I think.
Just to be clear,
like
it says right here, the program kicked off last month. Creators involved were told by Chorus,
and if you
but the contract stipulated they be kicked out and cut off if they acknowledged they were part of the program, meaning they imply with this article that they were not allowed to talk about Chorus.
About being part of a politically driven funding program, because that's just valuable for your audience to know. Just the way that, you know, Stephen, if you were taking tens of thousands of dollars from some, I don't know, political effort or something, like, even if you say, look, they never gave us talking points, I don't have to disclose. You're right. You don't have to disclose legally. There's no legal
I'm going to DM
reason
that to
you
Destiny,
have
actually.
to disclose. But, you know, is it good for transparency to have this sort of you know, non-public money like flowing around our political media environment? I don't think it is. And so that is how some of these content creators felt as well. And that is part of why they reached out to us, is because they didn't feel comfortable. They signed the contract, but they didn't feel comfortable with certain things within it. And so anyway, and I'm very surprised, by the way, total side note, that they didn't preempt my story and just do some puff piece about, we're excited to announce some funding program, because it would have completely thwarted our story, but they didn't do that. I don't know why.
Sure. So, I mean, there's a separate discussion to be had about disclosure. I think my biggest issue is I feel like selective disclosure is worse than no disclosure, as in if only some people are forced to disclose then and others aren't. I think that's not good. So I feel like the push should be towards changing the legal
framework
Zach, around what the reporting requirements are. Otherwise, you're just like,
the implication being that they paid them to say things. That's what everyone is taking from this article, which has just not been proven at all.
Like basically playing from behind, because obviously like conservatives or other movements don't have to do any of this. But
100%. Yeah, of course.
Circling back on the I guess like a couple questions just to nail down something. So the first thing is, you said nobody from Chorus or from the 1630 Fund or anybody associated with this, nobody has reached out to you or Wired personally to have a conversation.
Oh, they've reached out. Oh, not to me personally. They've reached out to Wired, but they've been unable to provide any facts that dispute our story. They've been unable to provide any evidence that disputes the fact of our story. But they've certainly responded. We incorporated their request for comment. I tried to reach them for weeks, right? And so as soon as we published the story, they gave us comment finally, and we incorporated that comment into the story.
Right, I agree, Thrag. People should disclose if they think it's going to look bad when it comes out, because it will come out eventually.
And then for the second part of that, so before this story went live, you're saying that you provided like full copies of the contracts to Wired's, I guess, legal team in order for them to go through to make sure that the claims in the articles comported with what they saw in the contracts?
Of course. Yes, of course.
Okay. So I guess like a couple clauses, because some people have released like parts of the contracts publicly that they've gone over, and maybe
I saw it's like some on Instagram or some video a girl had
on
it
TikTok
behind her.
and Reels and everything.
She's talking about the Allie video.
So obviously,
Allie O'Brien.
I'm not privy to the entire thing at this point, so I can't speak to any particular clauses. So I'm curious if there are other things that you saw, because there were some things that just didn't seem to be based on the things that I was reading. One of the big claims I think that was made in the article was the idea that you had to funnel all of your independent contacts through Chorus if you're going to arrange for like a meeting.
You had to loop them in. So you have to loop them in. So I think one thing that's interesting in that video that girl made, sort of disproving thing, number one, the email that she shows where she's reaching out to someone directly is from June 2nd, before the program even began. So it doesn't disprove anything. Now, you don't like it, according to the contract, you were supposed to use Chorus Newsroom to book engagements. Chorus Newsroom is this like internal tool or whatever. That just means that you're supposed to use that for booking things with lawmakers. Basically, they want you to loop them in on things. That doesn't mean that that they have like approval or disapproval or whatever. It just means that you're looping them in. And
so wait, why not? Because I'm curious, because I've sent a lot of
yeah, so that seems like
my background is in pro
she's
game,
saying the truth. That's all they wanted.
I've seen a lot of contracts. The language in the article was that creators in the program must funnel all bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus. That doesn't sound like looped in. That sounds like you're basically handing over your political contacts to Chorus for them to do.
You are handing over your contacts, and that's what I think some creators were concerned about.
Well, but then you're also not just handing them over, but that like they have to then set up all of the meetings and arrangements. Like if you're funneling something through somebody, you're not just looping
the Wired article makes it sound like you're
doing it through their
it doesn't say you have to do
and
that.
I just want to state
you don't have to do it through Newsroom.
We're not making the claim that they blocked anyone from interviewing anyone, but I think this became
but they
a
would have
concern.
the ability to, based on the article, right? They could block you.
In Allie's video, she posts a piece of the contract, and the contract says, one, if you're booking stuff for Chorus stuff, you do it through the Newsroom thing. However, if you're doing it independently, disclose any personal engagements, not funnel them through their Newsroom booking thing.
Don't know if they would or wouldn't do that, but I think the issue that creators expressed
I'm just trying to clarify, because there's a big claim in the article. Not would, but they could. If you have to funnel it through them, it seems to imply that they could block you from doing some content if you independently organized it. No. I
mean, I don't know their systems, and I don't know if they would do that. I don't know. We didn't talk to anybody that had that problem. But the problem that the reason I think you're missing why creators had a problem with that clause, and creators that we spoke to had a problem with that clause, Stephen, because there's increasingly this problem really since the Democrats lost, but even through the election last year, where there's these sort of middleman type organizations that hoover up a lot of contact details and kind of insert themselves as middleman and get in between creators establishing these more direct relationships with these lawmakers' offices. And so I think some creators bristled, given what previously happened with Chorus one time, where they did this event, I can't remember, it was for some Trump address in Congress or something. They had a bunch of creators come, the creators created the content, and then creators felt like, well, Chorus is kind of taking credit for this content because they helped facilitate part of it, but I really want credit for the content. And so creators, at least in terms of like that funneling, the booking stuff, I think creators...
Everything she's saying right now is fine. This is not the implication from the way she wrote it in the article. And I don't know if that's her I don't think she's walking it back necessarily, or if she's like kind of muting her language to be more reasonable right now. But I don't know if she knows how much worse it looks the way it's written in the article.
Felt like, I don't want to have to use Chorus Newsroom for booking. I don't want to have to share information with the Chorus network. Like, I just want to maintain, my own relationships, and I want to have this one-on-one relationship with the lawmaker. And now I have to be part of this bigger ecosystem where suddenly, for instance, a smaller creator gets a big interview. I think their fear, at least what they told us, is like, well, what if some other bigger person in the program then, once Chorus is looped in, does the interview, and that person gets more views than me or whatever. So I think it's
let's see, G-Free. That might be true.
They felt like they wanted to maintain, they didn't want to have to book through, these systems. And again,
I guess the thing was just based on the clause that I had seen released from that, the three parts of it, that idea of them being able to be a blocker, or that you have to funnel anything through them. I didn't see that unless there was another part of the contract that didn't get released. I didn't see it at all.
It says, right. And I think we can feel comfortable.
Let's bring this up
about
just
exactly
so we can
this
read it.
specific
I'm not a
language,
lawyer,
because
but
one of the creators did post just this specific paragraph, so we can discuss the specific paragraph. But it says book engagements. Chorus will provide contractors with access to the Chorus newsroom, which coordinates booking engagements, right?
Yep.
Contractor agrees to 1, use Chorus Newsroom to book engagements. 2, disclose to Chorus Newsroom personnel any engagements with government officials or other topics related to Chorus's policy agenda. Very broad. I asked Chorus what their policy agenda is. We still don't know. That contractor arranges through other means. 3, collaborate.
Okay, so you don't
fully
have
with
to use the
Chorus
newsroom.
regarding all such separately arranged agreements. So, that to a lot of creators that spoke to us felt unnecessarily restrictive.
This looks like you just have to loop them
I'm
in.
my own person. I'm fine being
But
part
the
of this
implication being you
program,
have to
but
funnel
why
it
do I
through
have to
them and
use
they
their
have control
system
over
to
it
book all these things
is not
with
borne out.
lawmakers? Why do I have to loop them in on things and sort of funnel my contact stuff through them? I don't want to give them my contact info. I don't want to have to loop them in because I'm worried that someone else from the network is going to big dog me and
Destiny Chat is insane.
take my interview or do something else. So
sure.
I think it's just
so there are two things going on here. So one is from somebody that's been part of organizations and part of agencies and part of a bunch of other things. I think it sounds like
Zach, I think there is
the newsroom basically.
I think this is a I hate the Democrats, I'm targeting the Democrats article. Yes, I do think there's like malicious intent behind it to make the Democrats look worse, not just to say dark money is bad and I care about that, because I do too. And she said as much to me. But I think this is also a hit piece on Democrats, in addition.
Connect creators in the program to, I guess, like...
lawmakers and things like
lawmakers,
that.
policy wonks, whoever else, right? So I feel like it makes sense that if I'm going to, let's say that I host an org and I have like 20 smaller creators and I bring them, and I have them introduced to Bernie Sanders or whatever, if I have an arrangement set up to where after that meeting, Bernie Sanders' staff is going to get 17 emails from creators saying like, hey, we just met you. Can we also do our own one-on-one thing? That nobody would ever want to be a part of the newsroom stuff. Like you would never have access to any of that information because now every single time somebody's brought in. So it would make sense for newsroom related stuff that you would have to at the very least loop in or clue in Chorus with what's going on there, especially if they're the ones that have like reached out and made the contacts. I guess the issue that the only issue I have just on the paragraph is that like that funnel like
Thank you, Dalton.
heavily implies that the way that the article is written is that Chorus can block you.
I see that too, Professor. And I didn't notice that because her head was in the way.
I guess
we don't make that claim in this story, and I'm sorry if the word funnel sort
Who's the guy in the corner? That's me, buddy.
of implied that to you, but we don't make that claim. So, Stephen, you brought something up that I think is actually
I just
a
one
really
more quick
point.
question on that. I'm sorry, and then you could,
okay.
You said okay because I don't know why because you use loop Chorus in on the next sentence. Why not just say loop in? Because I've never in my life heard funnel. Funnel always means you're handing the reins over to somebody else, right? Like.
You are using their program to book it, but sure, I guess.
But you could also book it on your own, right? Because the next sentence you have is that you can loop Chorus in on any independently organized engagements.
Yeah,
right. But loop in is not funnel. Those are two really different things, right?
Okay. So
do you acknowledge those are two really different things? To loop somebody in versus to funnel it through?
I personally don't interpret it that way, but if
to be clear, in Taylor's defense, the first clause is funnel them in because you have to use the Chorus newsroom tool, and the second one is, but you can also not funnel them in. So it's one or the other. And if it says that in our article, let's just double check that. Funnel. According to the copies of the contract, creators in the program must funnel all bookings through Chorus. Okay, so this isn't true because it says, according to the contract, they must funnel all things through Chorus. No, because the second sentence says they can just loop them in if they want to do it independently. So these two things are contradictory. This is not, they must do this and they have to also loop them in. It's, if you're going to do it through Chorus, do it through the tool. However, if you do it independently, loop them in. So this is actually just not true.
You want to interpret it that way, you're welcome to interpret it that way. I think, again, this is another reason why it would be really helpful for these creators that feel that maybe, hey, that word wasn't 100% right or something, that, they can release the contracts and people can litigate the specific language. But I think what you brought up, which is the bigger point in all of this, is exactly the experience or the situation that you described, right? You have 17 creators. Oh, now these lawmakers are going to get 17 different emails, whatever. Maybe Chorus is providing this service where they're going to loop everyone in, or they're going to, everyone's going to use this sort of one cohesive system and put it all sort of through one thing. So you're right? Like that there is an argument to be made for that type of system. And I've talked to a lot of lawmakers, especially on the Senate side.
Okay, guys, I'm going to skip
but
forward a
also in the
minute
House,
because
the House has
I'm
had a bunch
DMing
of, you know,
Destiny
their,
just in case I want to
the
funnel
comms group there
something
has, like,
through
been
him
doing
to
a bunch
tell
more with
Taylor
influencers.
because Taylor's not going to look at my phone.
Basically serving this very same purpose where they're sort of filtering creators, determining who gets access to lawmakers, et cetera, et cetera. And I totally understand from the lawmakers, you know, feeling that that's valuable. But more recently, and I talked to one lawmaker actually it's been a couple months ago, it was the White House Correspondents' Weekend. And this representative was telling me, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm beginning
keyboard
to be
media, if
suspect
that's
about some of
true,
these
but we
groups
need to know
because
what that meant.
I've
The
been
third
hearing from
clause.
these other content creators that I actually would have loved to work with that they haven't been able to get through the gates of these groups. And I feel like maybe now I'm cutting myself off from other opportunities. And so some
Well, I don't
lawmakers...
understand. I guess I don't understand that because anybody can email. I'm pretty sure all these comms people are. I know this because I've talked to some of these people. The comms people
Anybody
are on
can
Twitter.
email.
Yeah, anybody can email.
Of
So I don't know
course,
how you
but
could ever
they're
get cut off.
inundated, and so they're not. What they mean is that these lawmakers, and especially the House, which has established a lot more, like, because there's so many of them, more of these sort of like middlemen. They just rely on the middlemen. So they're just like, you know what, we don't really take inbound. Now a lot more lawmakers are more open, especially people like Ro Khanna and others. They are becoming more open, where they're like, you know
Oh
what,
shit, you're right. I'll do
I
that
might
next time.
rely on
Thank
this
you. I'll speed it
middleman
up.
for some stuff, but I'm also going to try to ensure that I hire staff that actually can evaluate these opportunities and even do more proactive opportunities to kind of develop our own direct relationship. And on the Senate side, Cory Booker has really done this, where Cory Booker himself has become
Timber
the kind
Wired
of
has it,
middleman.
she
and
has
Cory's
it,
office has done
and the
a
people who
lot,
signed it have it.
actually,
No one's released the whole
to
thing.
help educate other members on the Democrat side on the Senate of who content creators are, how to work with them, how to evaluate these opportunities. And Cory's office has created a lot of shared resources.
I am
to try
part of
to
the
help empower them so that they
Illuminati.
don't just have
Yes.
to rely on these like third-party companies, which also are making money, right? And they don't have to like worry about that. So I think it's just interesting.
One of the things, I guess
how
when I look
those
at this,
strategies evolve.
we keep using the word middleman, but like there's a value that these types of
course
organizations
there
are providing
is.
to both
Yeah,
the lawmakers
undeniably.
and to the
Sure.
streamers themselves. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it feels
yeah,
like when
yeah.
we talk about whether you want to say loop in or funnel or whatever,
Hold
like,
on.
it seems like we're talking.
Keyboard media, you can't say all things being equal, no reason to assume no editorial control. No, the claim is that there is editorial control, that they are being funneled. So you have to prove that. Not, well, based on my understanding of this contract that I didn't sign, this is what they were doing. If you can actually have proof of that happening. Now, it seems like some of the creators were worried that it could happen, but that's not what's happening. You have to assert that that is actually what happened.
Thinking about this as though it's almost like predatory or it's preventing people from doing some things. But the reality is that Chorus is just protecting the business that it's in of being able to form valuable connections.
Which totally, from a business standpoint, I understand that. And from a business standpoint, they want to also capture, like what they also want to do is make sure that people aren't going off, that people are in this program, right? And that they're off capturing, like, you know, say you're in this program and you have these people making this content that ends up really successful, you know, that Chorus wants to capture that and be able to put that in reports and stuff. So I understand it. I think what I found so interesting about this specific thing is that there are all of these discussions right now happening on the House and Senate side about, because again, they've all sort of just discovered influencers like in the last 6 months of like, how should we handle this? Should we rely on these outside agencies? How much power should we give them? How, you know, who can we hire internally? Is it the digital team? Is it the comms people who, you know, a lot of requests come through the comms people, but the comms people really only deal with traditional media. And so that's what like Cory's team especially has really on the Senate side tried to kind of like educate people about. And I think on the House side, it's a little bit more of a free-for-all.
Yeah, so I understand all of that, I guess. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think that when you read the article is almost completely overwhelmingly negative in regards to Chorus and its place and the connection they have between the influencer and Congress. But Chorus in this way is just functioning as like the same type of talent agency or rep that exists in ubiquitously across every single agency.
It's interesting you bring up talent agencies and reps, Stephen.
Yeah.
Because these content creators, many of them also have talent agencies and reps. And so one drama that Chorus got involved in months ago was actually relation to exactly what you're just describing, which I think is what you're going to say is like, this is what talent agencies and reps are doing. Like they have social good, you know, departments at WME or whatever, right? That can help set these things up. So Chorus, and not just Chorus, and we can use Chorus as like, you know, Chorus is an example of, there's also like, there's lots of other sort of like Chorus copycat type agencies that have cropped up.
Sure.
These talent agents and managers have become so livid with these middleman agencies because the middleman, and I just say middleman because they are, I should just say agencies, you know, the managers and agents are also middlemen. Okay. It's middlemen against middlemen.
Sure.
But we have like these political groups where like, you know, Stuart, Brian, Tyler Cohen, like they're very much from the political world, the people that started Chorus. And then we have the entertainment world. And the entertainment world, they, for a long time, have already been in this space. And suddenly the political world is like, oh, this
is
doesn't
the
exist.
live
We're gonna
Destiny
set this thing up,
reacting
right?
to
We're gonna
Destiny
start this thing,
reacting.
and
Hell
we
yeah.
already have these
Me
relationships
reacting
with
to
Congress
that.
people. So you're seeing a lot of clashing where the management companies and the talent agencies feel like, hey, how dare you go off and represent our creators? Only we represent our creators. And then also confusion on the booking side where they're like, well, I reached out to Chorus, but should I reach out to UTA? Should I reach out to what? Like, it's just absolute chaos. And I think
I don't. Well, hold on. I feel like this is dramatically over exaggerated. There should be no chaos here whatsoever. So I literally have signed with UTA in the past. Like, exactly when you're signing with agencies like this, the contract they're giving you generally gives them, if you're serious talent, they have the exclusive right to organize any type of paid sponsor activation, whatever type of event like that. Stuff that Chorus or these other political organizations cover. There might be some ambiguity there onto whether or not that would come under my UTA contract. But if I'm big talent or if I'm medium-sized talent, of course I'm just going to ask my UTA rep, right? I'm just going to shoot them an email or message them on whatever platform to say, hey, does this conflict with this contract? I don't know how this could be massive chaos.
So it was chaos. So first of all, you're talking about a talent agent contract, which is different, of course, than a management contract. What the chaos is this is so far beyond the scope of the article. Many of these creators, especially if they're big creators,
she's got them bogged down in the weeds, it seems.
Political work. Some of these big creators, like,
I mean, she's talking about a legitimate issue, but this is not what it was talking about the article.
I hate that Trump won, right? I do want to get more involved in politics. So they'll sign up with one of these third-party things, sometimes not even getting paid, right? They're not even part of the paid Chorus program. Maybe they just signed up for Chorus because they want.
Yep, Tyler, she totally skipped over like the heavily negative part. Like, I don't know if she's just like walking it back or if she just doesn't want to talk about it, but like Destiny's accepting that I guess now we're talking about something that's not what the article has to do with.
To do more stuff. And then the talent agents are coming in and being like, well, wait a minute. Like, we're the one to negotiate deals. We're the ones that have the exclusive right to sort of like represent you and negotiate opportunities for you and things like that. And so there's just this tension, which has, by the way, it's funny. We can talk about how the right has resolved. Like, the right had a version of this also that they dealt with. But I think that it just shows that like there's just a lot of sort of kinks to work out in terms of streamlining this process. And as the Democrats work to leverage more content creators, I think that it's interesting for me as a journalist to write about these different strategies and the way that these things are evolving. And so that's why I'm interested in Chorus, and not just Chorus. I've reported on the other groups too, and I have another story coming out soon about a whole other similar group. But they're all sort
another
of
hit piece coming, guys. We're in trouble.
They're all jockeying for their own businesses and their own business interests, but also the lawmakers and the Democratic lawmakers that I've spoken to are also trying to figure it out. And they are sort of getting their sea legs. And so I think that covering this stuff is interesting. And if we want to look at the right, by example.
Well, before I guess move on to that. So like, I agree with what you're saying there. But the article, in my mind, like it just basically reads like a hit piece against Chorus. I don't see any of the redeeming or positive qualities. I think the only prescription I saw in the article when you quoted the whatever that person's name was basically that this group just shouldn't exist at all. Like no types of group like this should exist.
A lot of these creators don't want any middlemen. So they don't want any
But those creators don't need to have middlemen. They just don't sign with these groups, right? That's super easy.
Creator has they do have other middlemen. I mean,
but again, this is just but they have them. But I mean, then why are they signing with them? They don't have to unless they're being held at gunpoint to sign the contracts, right?
Yeah. I think the thing that struck to me, and this is not really what we're talking about here, but I think like the main crux of the article is not any of this stuff. Like the main sort of thesis of the article is that they took undisclosed money, and to me that is something that people have a right to be concerned about.
Is he going to bring up that Taylor's reporter org is paid by the 1630 fund?
They are not the only ones, running these sort of influence campaigns, right? This has happened on the far right for years, although less so. They've gotten a lot more transparent. But like there's a lot of
got more transparent
campaigns because of the lack of rules around this, like you said earlier, because the FEC is like out to lunch and there's no regulation basically in the influencer world. We are seeing just like a lot of these influence campaigns.
Timber, it's only been a few days. We don't know what's going to happen with the facts. And it seems like David Pakman might sue, but who knows if that'll go anywhere.
Consume this content and they don't know what people are being paid. And that is very different from how traditional media worked, because to all the problems with traditional media, there is a lot more disclosure.
Is there? Do I know like every single source of funding for like podcaster people or for like Fox News?
No. We're not talking about podcaster people. We're talking about journalists. So for instance, if you're a journalist at a mainstream media organization, you absolutely could never take outside political funding.
Not political funding, but like they could take sponsorships or whatever from other people.
No. If you work at a mainstream news organization, you cannot do any of that. And by the way, I'm sympathetic to the fact that like that might be too extreme. Like I do think that there's probably a happy middle ground where like maybe you can do stuff that's not directly related to your beat, et cetera. Condé Nast specifically on their fashion brands and women's fashion brands, women's media has evolved to the point that women's media organizations are actually negotiating contracts, SponCon contracts for their own reporters.
Wait, can I just so I can be clear? So somebody who works at, say, who's like a host or talent at like Fox News couldn't be paid $5,000 to give a speech somewhere or something like that, they would have to disclose all of that. That's a legal thing?
Well,
or is that...
Fox, I don't know. Fox News does not have the same editorial standards as a lot of other mainstream media places.
Sure, but when you say editorial
certainly...
standards, that implies it's not a legal thing. You're just talking about like some standard or accepted practice at some companies.
Exactly,
but there's no legal
yes.
enforcement
So we're talking about mainstream traditional reporting. And I mean, maybe I should say reputable reporting, because I don't think that Fox News has a great track record on reputable
Jen,
reporting.
the implication is that they're shills. We've moved so
media,
far beyond
like,
that
even
claim.
like
She's just
CNN,
like,
I
well,
hate CNN,
other
right?
people kind of
But
had that interpretation.
CNN, New York Times,
I don't know. I think she
and
should
other
answer
places,
for that.
The Wall Street Journal, all these other mainstream media outlets, Wired, they do have these clauses where no, you cannot take outside money. You cannot do undisclosed things.
In fact, I guarantee you, if she goes and talks with Vanguard or Hassan about this, I bet she'll say more of what they're thinking, because they're claiming crazy stuff. Let's see, though.
Cannot do sponsorship deals on the side, or certainly not take money from a political group. You would be fired immediately and never hired again if you took undisclosed money from a political group and didn't talk about that. So I think that that's a level of transparency that actually most news consumers aren't aware of. They never realized often that was.
I gotta watch
that,
the Vanguard
that
thing.
There were these editorial standards sort of behind the scenes, and I think as we move towards a more content creator driven ecosystem, it's good to have these conversations of what should be disclosed and when.
Yeah,
right?
I think I could agree with that. Actually, I think there should be hardcore disclosure standards enforced, and anybody that calls themselves media alternative or otherwise. But I didn't see any recommendations.
We're watching her on the Vanguard after that.
I think coming away from the article, the takeaway is just that this Chorus and 1630 Fund are operating in some like especially nefarious or bad way, especially because I think you had at least two quoted people who were claiming that they were illegally murky at best or were being used to evade FEC restrictions. The Dubois quote.
That's what their lawyer said. Yeah, their lawyer said that. I think.
Well,
but
wait. The lawyer just was explaining the law. That's different
exactly.
Than, but wait, not exactly.
Sure. He's not saying,
the thing that the Dubois.
He's saying there is no lack of disclosure. He's not saying like, hey guys, the rules exist and we're thwarting them. He's saying, guys, you don't have to worry about these rules because we're a nonprofit. We're structured in this way where don't worry, you don't have to worry about blah blah.
That's
blah
not how it was framed.
So
it was framed like we are
to the crux of the problem. Which is that we have an FEC that's asleep at the wheel. And I think no matter where you are on the political spectrum, although actually, no, if you're on the right, you don't give a shit about disclosure. But if you are not on the right,
I think that we can definitely fight over how, C4s are
want
the
them
disclosures.
To at least acknowledge it, right? We want at least.
But
and
again, I don't. But I think the article
we should push these companies to acknowledge it.
The article seemed to explicitly target Chorus as being exceptionally bad here. So like for the Elizabeth Dubois quote you had, you were saying that the legal aspects were murky. Well, the legal aspects aren't murky. They're pretty clear. It's just that the legal aspects right now suck, right? The FEC guidelines that we have on this and the IRS guidelines kind of suck for this. So it's not that if you were to read that the legal aspect is murky at best, it makes it sound like Chorus is the one who's
So when I reached out to the FTC, yes. Well, I think what is murky is what crosses over to sponsored content, what crosses over to some of this. So I reached out to the FEC and the FTC about this, and I actually spoke to the former FTC person at length about this exact topic, because the FTC doesn't really cover political content, but people
we're getting into the vibes.
There's some commercial activity.
This exact same thing happened when I wanted to talk to her about the video. We really didn't talk about the video much, and I had all these like written down claims and kind of like counterfactuals, but we just didn't get to it. She like started off the conversation saying like, oh, that was, a little murky. I could have done better on that. And I'm like, well, let's talk about it. And we never really got to the substance because she knows a lot of stuff. So she's going to be talking about all this other stuff that doesn't really drill down to the point. I wish they would be talking about the article right now.
It can maybe some disclosure requirements can apply and all this stuff. The point is that like, I don't fault, or rather, I think a lot of creators in this program are well-meaning. And I've said from the beginning, I don't think it's necessarily helpful to go around doing a witch hunt of, hey, you took the money, you didn't take the money, you did this, goes, whatever. The reason that we have this story is because creators in the program themselves were uncomfortable with this. I think
why is it then like because you painstakingly go out to like name creators and their platforms that are associated with it?
Sure, we included the ones that are relevant, right? That we think people should know, and I wish that we could include more. If it were up to me, it would publish the whole thing.
Yeah, but what's the point?
Because I think people deserve to know. Well, I think people deserve to know who's getting money without disclosure, right? We want people to know who's getting money without disclosure.
Sure. The disclosure is not legally required, though, and
it's not. That's the problem. It's not legally required.
But there's no argument to make it legally required. There's just a targeting of this particular organization, acting like they're like in some special bad territory.
Well, what this organization did is not value transparency. So there are other organizations similar to Chorus that do value transparency, that are
No,
nonprofits.
Timber, real quick, I just want to show everyone this again. I think this is patently false based on what they were just saying. Based on those first two statements, right? The following initial outreach, creators expressed concern about some stipulations. According to the copies of the contract, assuming it's that clause that Allie showed, right? Creators in the program must funnel all their bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus, implying they have to use that tool, which is what she kept talking about. However, the second clause says they can loop them in if they independently organize. But it says they must funnel all the bookings through Chorus, and they also have to loop Chorus in. These are not contradictory the way she has written it. I think this is false. I think this is patently false the way this is written, or at the very least misleading.
The space that value transparency, and they say, listen, we're running, ironically, we're running this this paid thing for this political, we're running this like political effort for whatever, I don't know, whatever sort of political message they're pushing. We value disclosure. We want to make sure that you make it clear that you're, that you have a relationship with us or whatever. So a paid relationship. So I think what I would
hope
hope
is kind of a witch hunt then, though, right? Like if the goal is to out every creator involved in this particular thing,
well,
to witch
we
hunt them out of this
certainly
program, right?
Not out of the program. What we want is these companies like Chorus to prioritize and center disclosure. And in fact, Stephen, what they have shown is that they continue to double down on lack of disclosure. They still will not publish the full list of creators. They still won't release these creators from their NDA. There are creators right now that want to speak publicly but are not able to. And there are creators desperate.
I feel like so many people have gone live and spoken publicly about this. That seems hard.
No, they haven't. They've gone live and they've spoken only in the way that they're allowed to about Chorus specifically, but they're not speaking publicly about the sort of the nature of these other programs, or sorry, I can't speak, the paid nature of the program. And so what I think that Chorus should do,
just to be clear, there have been people who have literally made videos saying they get paid by Chorus, they're in Chorus.
Now they have, yes, now they have, yes, but they're not talking about the aspects of the sort of non-disclosure. And that what I think would be valuable is for Chorus to say, listen, we value transparency.
Timber, I don't know what you want. That's just straight up wrong.
Transparent as it should have been starting out. We want
it should have been according to you, right?
Well, according to every ethics expert that we asked in media, and I think according to what the public expects from creators, which is a level of transparency where if you're going to take money from a political group for political purposes,
we saw this part of the
that.
contract, and she read it out loud on stream, Scarecrow.
To help build a more transparent political media ecosystem, which I think we all want. If we're somewhat on the left, we want more transparent.
Guys, involving someone can be looping them in. Telling them you have to funnel it through Chorus is what the article implied, okay? The article says, also, you can do this, implying, or also you must do this, implying both of those things must happen, but you do not have to funnel them through Chorus. You just have to let them know if you're independently organizing. So it's not true.
Ecosystem in political media, say like, hey guys, you are free to talk about this. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I was surprised that they didn't announce the program, because even now they still
they have announced, right? Like, I think Brian Telecom and I think David Beckman months ago announced that they were starting this program, right?
No, they didn't announce anything about the 1630 fund or any of the funding stuff. They announced that they were doing the public facing program. Sure, that's never been a secret. That's on the website. But this private paid program was not announced. Of course, now it's all public since I've reported on it. But
didn't they have like the application thing like on the website? You could apply to join Chorus if you wanted to.
You could apply to join the public thing, but that wasn't the same as this like paid thing, which is private. So of course they're soliciting creators for it. There's one creator in the story, right, who's quoted, who applied for it, who heard about it. It was spreading around, like creators themselves were sort of talking about it.
Timber, it's not about them being legally binding. It's about what does the article say? What is the article saying, Timber? Is the article saying that they have to funnel it all through Chorus? Are people coming away from the article thinking a certain thing about what Chorus was doing that is not true because of the way it is written? Yes. Hence, it is a misleadingly written article.
Goal. I feel like the easiest thing would then just to be to publish a contract, which if you
sorry, Devin, I don't want to watch the naked gun after this. I just watched it.
I work for Wired, and unfortunately, that is their stance of not publishing the source material because they are concerned about, potentially identifying stuff. I'm with you, Stephen.
Did Wired tell you explicitly on this story that you were not allowed to publish? That was Wired's decision and not yours, that you weren't allowed to publish the contract?
We've made the decision that we're not going to publish the source material.
Well, of course, I know you made that decision because it isn't published, but I'm asking, was it Wired that prohibited you from publishing it?
I'm willing to go back and have a conversation with the lawyer about it again. But what I would say, Stephen, is that Brian Tyler Cohen is a stakeholder in Chorus. If he feels that this story is false, we don't even have to do it publicly, right? He could go to Wired and say, here's the actual contract. Here's the proof that shows that.
The problem with this is that the lawyer already has seen the contract and thinks it means a certain thing that has been written in the Wired article already. So he can't just show them the contract because they've seen it and they'll say, no, this is what it means. Even though he says, hey, the way our lawyers wrote this, the intention is this, and we will never have never restricted creators this way. You're just speculating on what this language means. That's not going to dispute it. Factually, they have the same facts. It's their interpretation of the contract.
Your story is wrong, and Wired would correct it. And Wired has not received any proof from any of these creators privately that it's wrong. And so Wired doesn't need to post like receipts or whatever to stand by their reporting. And what I would say to these creators is if you are going to continue to say that it's a lie publicly, then at least provide proof to, the company privately to get a correction on the story. There's not a single correction on the story. And trust me, they would put a correction on the story. If we had proof myself, I hold myself to standards. Like, I would love to see proof, that they like, hey guys, like all those contracts, everything else you got, all the Zoom meeting, that's all fake, whatever, like this is something else refutes it. Like, sure. But they haven't provided any of that proof privately or publicly. And I think that's because they don't actually care. I'm speculating here, but it seems to me that it's easier for them to respond to a story like this instead of, making it about discussions around transparency. It seems to me that what they instead want to do is, or what they have done, is do all of these silly personal attacks accusing me of being friends with Tucker Carlson or other nonsense like this. I don't know if you've seen this online, but this is what Brian Tyler Cohen responded doing. And they've also been saying things that
Brian
aren't
Tyler, I think he released a 5-minute video, and I think like 3 seconds of that was related to that. But the rest of that video was responding with
3
substance.
seconds.
Well,
No,
the rest of the thing was him refuting a whole bunch of the claims that were made in the article. He didn't show the contract on screen, which I guess is what he
he didn't show any proof of anything that he claimed. He also
but you
falsely
also haven't
claimed.
shown any proof of anything that you're claiming either, other than
I'm a journalist that published it in Wired magazine. If he wants to go,
but you also chose not to publish the contract. That was your individual
but
decision.
again, it is published. My reporting is published in Wired. You're right. I could have gone on Twitter months ago and said, hey guys, scoop twitter.com. I'm going to publish receipts. Like, this is what a lot of people are used to.
Sure, you keep saying receipts like it's a social media term, but that's not true, right? If you've been a writer, no, absolutely, there are absolutely stories that are published where tons of information is released publicly.
Sometimes the source material is released publicly. Sometimes, in certain instances.
I don't know why they don't just redact the contract with names out.
But in an instance where you've received multiple contracts, we can compare the contracts one to another to verify that the language is unique from one to the other. You very easily can publish the entire contract without damaging any individual creators, right?
No, so what we can't confirm, Stephen, and this might be what you're getting stuck up on and confused on, is that we can't confirm, we just can't confirm. We haven't seen the rest of, like, we can't confirm what is identifying and what is not unless we saw all the contracts, right? We just don't know. And there's no reason for us to do that when our reporting has not been challenged.
Hold on. She can't confirm that every contract looks the same, obviously, but the contracts that she's reporting on are because some people in the cohort sent them to her. So she should release those contracts that would otherwise verify that is what it says in the contract, because that's the claims that she is making. I don't have a contract, Scared Crow. I want one. I applied.
Our reporting
they have
was being
challenged the reporting. They just haven't published their contracts
without any
yet.
facts. Without.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if somebody says a thing, somebody can
Wired.
refute a thing without publishing a thing either, right?
I mean, Stephen, what you're arguing is something that a lot of people on the right argue, which is that unless you publish this source material in the way that I like it, why should I believe anything on Wired.com has any editorial standards? Why should I believe the Wired lawyers, the Wired fact checkers, the Wired editors, the Wired reporters? Why should I believe any of that? I'm not going to trust any of that. I'm only going to trust...
No, Timber, I said redact the sources, not post it bland.
But I think that's a great
like,
thing
redact
to
the
some
names.
extent, in that there are a lot of companies that do publish a lot of the source material, right? I'm pretty sure
or
Wired
recreate it,
I think
which
Wired
is a
even
thing.
changed their standards to that where they don't do conversations on background anymore. They assume that everything is on the record when they're interviewing people, and I think they make that explicitly clear when Wired is communicating with people.
With spokespeople, that might I can't help you because
there's a
Wired
really easy thing. All you got to do is publish the contract, and then that makes everything abundantly clear. It's like, okay.
Well, again, Wired stood by their reporting. They could provide any evidence.
Well, I know
they
Wired. You keep talking around this. It's very clever. I understand, but like, it was your choice ultimately to not publish the contract.
Yes, because I don't. You know why? Because I don't want to jeopardize my sources. And we had a lot of conversations, and I shared even a portion of the contract. And even my source reached out and was like, "Hey, I'm just not comfortable with this." And we ultimately want to respect our sources' right to, not be.
You can just recreate it.
They're very scared right now because there's a lot of legal threats that are going around. These sources
how could one single source even know if you have multiple people who've shown you contracts?
One single source know what?
How could one single source reach out to you saying they were uncomfortable about some provision of the contract that was shared if multiple contracts have been shared with you guys? How would they even know?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You said that you published something in your article and somebody reached out to you saying they were worried about what you'd published.
No, not in the article. I posted a small sliver of a screenshot of a clause in the contract. And I heard from one of my sources that was like, "Hey, I'm really scared because they're doing this legal. We're scared of getting sued. I just want to make sure that you're not going to share the contract because, again, the conditions that they shared it under is that it would not be posted all publicly on the internet. That we would report on it and we would use it for reporting material.
Yeah, Zuri, of course I would.
On Twitter.com, which is the agreement that I made when I reported on this.
Not
story.
Change the language though. Just retype it.
It with them. Maybe I will try. I've actually, like I said, I have fought so hard. It's ironic that you're pushing me on this because, Stephen, trust me, I have fought in every institution that I'm at to share more source material. I don't know if you remember my interview with Libs of TikTok. That interview was actually in the context of a 3,500 word story that I wrote totally separately that I think
I'm aware of that, Zuri, but you can publish the things that are reported on in the article without revealing the sources.
Would be the only way that people could sort of like truly understand what this woman had to say, and that where these quotes wouldn't be taken out of context and such. So I'm with you. I am totally with you on the transparency there.
You're saying this, but on this particular case, it sounds like Wired would be okay with you publishing the contract, but you decided not to.
No. First of all, I don't think they are okay with me publishing source material. As far as I understand, that's not something that we agreed to at all.
I didn't say you agreed to it, but you keep talking around this. But you chose not to publish the contract. If you went back to your editor right now and you said, I actually think I want to publish portions of this, you're telling me they would say no? Why
I
would say
already
you can't
signed
do
an
that?
agreement saying that I wouldn't. I signed an agreement saying that I wouldn't do that.
Wait,
so
with who?
I'm with Wired, that I agreed to report this stuff exclusively for Wired.
That's agreeing to report it exclusively for Wired, that you would give them the scoop on something. It's not the same as agreeing that you wouldn't publish any of the source material.
No. Stephen, please. I know that you haven't freelanced very much, but no, the point is that
Hold on, I'm sorry. Just to be extremely clear, you're telling me that you have a clause in your exclusive reporting on this with Wired, a clause in your contract that says I will not publish any of the source material in my article that I write for this.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. But she said she posted some of it on Twitter, and then the source told her that they weren't comfortable. So now she's saying Wired told her that she can't do it because she signed a contract. So she violated her contract? I don't... This is a little fishy, Taylor.
I signed on to, which is totally standard in a lot of freelance contracts, is that I wouldn't publish it, that I wouldn't publish, that I would reserve all of my exclusive reporting material for them. That means I'm not using it for a podcast. That means I'm not using it for social media.
Taylor, Listen,
Stephen, don't interrupt.
I've signed a lot of these contracts and you're doing this game. You're doing the game.
If you keep interrupting me, we're not going to have a conversation. Are you going to let me finish speaking or are you going to keep interrupting me? Please let me finish my thought before you interrupt me.
It's getting spicy.
There are many reasons why we're not publishing this material directly. All I can tell you, you don't agree with many of them, and you can litigate them with me all day and do debate stream, whatever. It is ultimately unproductive because the result is the same, which is that I am not publishing the direct source material. Now, people can choose before you interrupt and freak out. Okay?
She said she posted a sliver of it already.
I don't trust Wired. I don't trust their fact checkers. I don't trust their legal team. I don't trust whatever. I'm sympathetic to that because people don't trust the mainstream media. But what I would say to those people is that Wired does abide by standard journalistic practices. And if Brian Tyler Cohen or any of these other people had provided information, not publicly, but reached out to Wired with information that counteracted the facts of the story, or reached out to me with information that disproved the facts of the story, there would be a correction on the story. And
again, this is so silly because the facts of the story, there's very little factually incorrect things. It's mostly, in my opinion, misleading. So you can take the facts and say, hey, they did this thing. Isn't this shady? For example, if we look at the article and see this guy saying, let's see, you don't have to worry about that, I believe it was. They were talking about this Wilson part of it. Here we go. So this is not factually incorrect. This is probably a direct quote. There are some real great advantages to housing this program in a nonprofit, Wilson said to creators. It gives us the ability to raise money from donors. It also, with this structure, avoids a lot of public disclosure or public disclaimers. Paid for by blah, 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 that you see on political ads. We don't need to deal with any of that. Your names aren't showing up on reports filed with the FEC. This isn't there to say, hey, did you know that this wasn't part of something that needs to be filed with the FEC? This is to make it look shady, like, guys, and we don't have to go through the FEC, and the FEC won't comment because it's scary. And it's like, yes, this is implying this sort of subversive, malicious intent. That's not factually incorrect, but that's what people are walking from. And I bet when I go watch her on the Vanguard, I'm going to hear a lot more egregious things being talked about.
So I welcome them even still to provide any information privately. If they don't want to do it publicly, they could still get corrections on the story. They would just have to provide evidence that what we reported was false. So far, they have not done that. Now, listen, you can disagree with this decision not to publish the contract directly, but that is a decision that I made with the sources and that I made with Wired when I agreed to give this reporting to them instead of doing it online. And please, you can critique me and disagree with me on that, but it is completely counterproductive to go around in circles and litigate this over and over again when the end result is the same. And it sounds like you disagree with that. And I'm sympathetic to that disagreement because I have also been in these newsrooms where I've advocated repeatedly for us to put more things on the internet. But that is what it is. And so I guess we will just have to agree to disagree on that point. There are a lot of other things related to this article that I think are a lot more...
No, it's not undisclosed payments, Timber. It's undisclosed donations from 1630 to Chorus.
...pertinent that we could be debunking, that we could be...
But it's also undisclosed payments to these creators because they're not doing political content for money. It's part of a training program, which you can say is shady because people want to have the thing of authenticity, right? I understand that. But this is not some malicious, Chorus is wringing their hands, yeah, we can get around it. It's just saying, hey, just so you know, you don't have to do that. You don't have to report it.
Discussing, and instead
what you were allowed to publish or the source material being published, whatever.
Advocated repeatedly for us to put more things on the internet. But That is what it is. And so I guess we will just have to agree.
I agree, Zuri. I'm against dark money.
There are a lot of other things related to this article that I think are a lot more pertinent that we could be debunking, that we could be discussing. And instead, you just
Taylor,
this litigate this thing.
I want to talk about the article. You go back to the article.
And the result is the same.
And I understand, and that's fine. We can disagree on this particular thing, but it's just in an article where it seems like you're advocating for a maximalist approach to transparency that transcends even what the law requires, right? Which is that you want every single content creator, influencer, talent agency.
I don't think it's evil, Zuri. You can tell me why you think it is.
Things that exceed what you yourself even.
It's at worst shady. I don't think it's evil.
It's interesting that in that same article.
First of all, hey, if anyone doesn't know this, 1630 advocates, like, the thing that funded Chorus, this whole article, this whole scandal is about, is funded by a PAC, one of which has, or of one, has a bunch of people who just tell people who they are. Like, they don't keep it secret, even though they legally can. So George Soros, one of the people that helps fund Taylor Lorenz, donate to this fund. Second of all, they want to get rid of dark money. The leader of this, the executive leader of this, says that they want to get rid of it, as per an article that Taylor linked, right? So the 1630 where is it? Let's see, dark money. Yeah. The 1630 funds, this is an article linked from Taylor's fiscal sponsorship model in which it serves as an incubator and an administrator to help get new progressive advocacy organizations off the ground as a point of emphasis for the group. And its backing of campaign finance reforms that will require it and other nonprofit groups to disclose donors and potentially reduce their influence on politics. So you want to call that evil, like, oh, they're fighting fire with fire, whatever. Their end goal is to get rid of it altogether. So just because some donors don't have to disclose, like, oh, they're evil, like, that's ridiculous.
Not to publish the contract that would easily resolve
not
every
on my
single
own,
claim.
not on my
Just
own.
to be clear, that when I say
This
on
is...
your own, I let you go. You have to let me finish, okay?
Yes,
because every time I ask you if you would have published this, if you would publish the contract, you keep saying we. I understand that you made decisions in conjunction with your editor or whoever you signed with to release this article for. And then when I ask you about publishing the contract,
Deepak was, I think, one of the mentors in this, Timber, yes.
It sounds like I've seen just as many, if not more than you, because I know exactly what you're describing when you talk about not publish it anywhere else. And you're just talking about the exclusivity agreement that you had with Wired. You're not talking at all about what you were allowed to publish or the source material being published or not. You were just explaining that you were allowed to publish that source material on your Twitter or in any other place. That's just a standard exclusive contract.
I'm agreeing it's shady. Keyboard Media.
Stephen, again, this is just completely unproductive. I have gotten in trouble at news organizations for publishing source material directly. I've gotten in trouble many times over. I'm not about to.
The easy question is, would Wired block you from publishing the contract? Would Wired say, no, you cannot do that?
I have no idea. I'd have to talk to them again, and I'd have to have conversations with my sources about it. It is not so. Again, the end result is the same. But not publishing. Not talking about publicly. Once again, these creators could disprove this by reaching out directly, and they have been unable to refute the facts of our story. So
I think they should do that. I don't know why they haven't done that. They should do that. Yeah.
And next time, you know what? I take your point. Next time that I report a scoop, maybe I will spend a little extra time negotiating and saying, by the way, I'm going to release this amount online, and I'm going to do this and this, or maybe I'll just post it on Twitter. I have done that myself with stories sometimes before.
Because Keyboard, if you're implying like they have to go through this fund, they have to get all their ideas, they have to it's tailoring and they're allowed to control like the things that come out because of the way that you've interpreted the contract, and then you look at what actually happened, and it's, oh, well, yeah, you have to funnel some stuff if you're booking through us, but you can also just loop us in if you want to do it independently. And yeah, we're not paying you to have any certain opinion, but we are giving you money to build up your platform. That is not what people are walking away from. People are saying these are paid Democratic shills. People are saying they refuse to speak on Gaza. People are saying they were only allowed to criticize what the DNC allowed them to criticize. And I have seen no evidence of that, and that is what the article is implying.
Like, you know what? I'm actually...
I already talked to Taylor. We were texting about this. I don't want to have another fucking public debate about it.
Not even going to do this for a news org. I'm just going to go ahead and post some stuff publicly, because I think that this is a better way to communicate the story. So feedback accepted, and I understand what you're saying because I am on the same side. I think we all want more transparency. What I would say is that I'm a journalist, and what we are asking for in terms of the subjects of our article, this is a political effort. And I think transparency in terms of communication about who's getting paid is so important in politics.
Yes, infected animal. Stephen, just to be clear, guys, I'm not saying dark money isn't bad. I'm anti-dark money. 1630 is anti-dark money. And if you're saying, I think these creators should have disclosed this, yeah, I think they should have. I don't think, first of all, they're not legally obligated to. I don't think it's this like suspicious, shady thing. If it's like, hey, this training program's giving me some money to help me get off the ground and quit my job, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, look, you were receiving money, you didn't tell us. It's like, okay, well, why would I say that I'm getting help with thumbnails just because I made a video about, I don't know, Curtis Yarvin or some shit, right? Making a video on Curtis Yarvin had nothing to do with whether or not I had training on, hey, the news topics for today. Now, for me personally, I wanted to make a video on Curtis Yarvin. Progressive Victory reached out and said, hey, we're doing a tech oligarch series. Would you like to make a video on Curtis Yarvin? I was like, ooh, great coincidence. But if they didn't do that when I was thinking about it, and they were just like, hey, it would be cool if you made a video about this, I'd be like, yeah, that's an interesting topic. And if they said no, then I wouldn't do it. Or if it wasn't interesting to me. Now, they didn't offer me money for this video, but they did offer me some assistance with some equipment. And I was like, oh, awesome. That means I can work on this video on the road. That had no bearing on as to whether or not I made the video. It didn't have any editorial control. They didn't control, like say, hey, you can't do XYZ in this video, or you have to hit these points. All they did was say, hey, do you want help making the stuff that you already make? And also, here's interviews with David Karp, this guy who like talks about Curtis Yarvin all the time. All of this is totally fine. Now, they didn't even buy me the laptop, GeoRock. They gave me some assistance for the laptop. I paid for a lot of it too, because it's a nice one that can render stuff while I'm on the road. But yeah, it's like, okay, so I might not have told people I got this amount of money from Progressive Victory, but in that video specifically that they helped me make, topic-wise, interview-wise, I said at the end, hey, this video was helped because of Progressive Victory. They're giving me connections. I didn't say how much money they gave me. I didn't say like, oh, like they're tailored. Well, I don't know if obviously they're not like controlling my opinions, but like, if you guys think it's shady that I didn't specifically disclose the amount of money that they gave me to help me do a laptop and edit, I think that's ridiculous. Now, I'm telling you now, and that's not because of this controversy, it's just come up, but I could probably forget about mentioning that for like totally. However, if they're paying me to make content, I'm going to put it in the video. These people were not getting paid to make content. They're getting paid to get trained to keep making what they're doing. And the article is implying, hey, Chorus is like, telling you what to say and you can't go against the thing. People are saying, oh, Chorus paid these people. That's why they're not talking about Gaza. I don't think so. Now, if they can show that, they can. But that is not factually true as of now.
That it's important for people to disclose when they're getting political funding. That's important, right?
I think it's essential. That's why I advocate for changing the laws. I would never push just one group or one side or one thing to do that, because it just puts you at a disadvantage, because now you're disclosing stuff and nobody else is, and now people are just going to attack your disclosures, and now nobody else has to make the same types of disclosures. But I do agree with you in terms of like, I think that like, listen, as much.
Hold on. Not all of them did, Timber, but a bunch of these creators are like, I'm part of Chorus. Donate to Chorus. This is a thing a bunch of them were doing.
A lot of your stuff. I'm glad that you unmasked it.
Yes, Siri, I'm aware of what manufacturing consent is. Of course, you can just pick the people that you think are going to say what you want them to say. But there's a bunch of these creators that were attacking the DNC, that were talking about Gaza, that were criticizing Biden. So that theory just does not hold up.
The TikTok account, okay? I think it's really weird that there's a lot of people in alternative media that have a huge sway over our political conversations, and we don't even know who they are, what country they're from, or who they might be paid for, or who they work for. So I think there's a great value in that. I guess just curious, the only other the biggest, strongest claim that I've seen was that like people who would even reference being in the program would be that
Allie O'Brien.
Is that like a clause of the contract written too, that if people acknowledge that they were in Chorus or that they were getting paid, that they could be cut from or kicked out of the program?
Yeah, creators told us that if they had violated any terms of the contract, they could be kicked out. And I think that is part of violating the contract would have been to go public. There are these these agreements, or there is this language in the contract that says this is not public and you cannot disclose basically that you're in this program or disclose the identity of the funder. And that is something, again, that these creators, some of them, wanted to do. And they did not want to just get online and say, hey guys, I'm being funded by the 1630 fund or whatever, because they understood that they would be kicked out, because that would be one of many things that they could do to violate the terms of the contract. And if you violated the terms of the contract, of course, you would suffer the consequences of that.
Sure. Okay. I mean, that also sounds kind of standard. If you violate terms of a contract, they'll probably kick you out. But the disclosure part, I guess, also depends on how it's being disclosed. I feel like there's probably reason for some caution there, right? In that, there was one part of the article mentioned they needed permission first. I can kind of understand that to maintain the FEC standing, right? You wouldn't want somebody doing some event and saying like, oh, hey, I'm part of Chorus, and that's why I'm here doing this thing. The Chorus has nothing to do with it, and then Chorus could get roped into a whole FEC debacle where it's like, wait, this was for they were with an AOC event, and now they said that Chorus helped him, so there's like a huge issue here, and they shouldn't have said that. I feel like some of those things are kind of fair.
I totally. I mean, I get it, but one thing that I would say, Stephen, and I think actually Tina Nguyen and Mia Sato at The Verge had a really great piece. They did publish this discussion.
She's on TikTok,
The Verge,
Maurice. Let me see if I can post it for you.
Industry and politics about kind of like this strategy of non-disclosure, and they compared it to the Koch network, which is something that the 1630 fund is compared very frequently to the Koch network in the sense that they're both these big dark money groups, and in many ways, according to Politico, at least,
I'll put the link in the description right now.
To the Koch network. And what Tina herself was a Koch fellow, like she was in the right-wing media herself. Now she reports on it. I thought what she said was so smart in that piece, where she was talking about like kind of why the Koch network actually has become less relevant over recent years, and in part it was because it had this it had this air about it where it was these sort of like shadowy billionaires like funding things, and people sort of
obviously, guys, everything would be better if everyone had to disclose this sort of thing. Okay, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with what happened. I'm saying that this article is very misleading and leading people to a bunch of wrong conclusions. And I think the controversy around it is ridiculous considering what they're advocating for. And if you want to advocate for more disclosure, which is like Taylor's through line in all of this, I'm fine with that. But the idea that Chorus is some shady dark money group because they were paid by 1630, which is dark money, is ridiculous to me, considering what the mission of 1630 is and the way that they were paying these influencers, which is to teach them how to like make videos and have more of a spread, which is perfectly reasonable.
like, especially around the Tea Party times that they were sort of like funding this, fake grassroots movement.
behind
Like,
are we
people
right
didn't
now?
like the idea that
5 minutes.
that this was all happening in secret, and people don't like to feel like their political or media ecosystem is polluted by these like weird dark money forces like on the right or the left. And so I think what's interesting about what 1630 is doing now is, and what Tina argues in her piece with Mia, is that like they're sort of pursuing this strategy that ultimately failed. Whereas like something like Turning Point USA, which is a lot more public, the Turning Point, kids like those influencers like literally have at Turning Point like in their bio. It's this like public thing that actually has been like that sort of more public.
Siri, hold on, dude, come on. She couldn't have written an article that didn't cause a speculation. Watch this. I will do it right now in 3 seconds. Okay, I'm not going to write the whole article, but let's just go through it in a way that isn't nearly so speculative. We'll just change the language just a little bit, okay? A dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. What do you get from that? Dark money influencing the influencers. They're funding them. What is the real story here that isn't editorializing, that isn't painting it bad? How about people are raising concerns about dark money being used by the Democrats? Was that so hard? That's true. That's what's in the story. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online gave them up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. Wait, hold on. To push the party line? I think that's actually a misleading or false claim, right? Because so far we see nothing about them having to push the party line, that they were changing their opinions at all. It was just to promote Democrat content. Now, if you want to call that pushing the party line, you would have to kind of show me that they're not allowed to say certain things that are outside of the party line, which they have not done. So yeah, you could absolutely write this without the speculation. And this was meant to have a narrative. Like 1000%. In fact, just to be clear, I mean, like, if you don't think Taylor Lorenz hates Democrats, like, I don't know what to tell you. She does. It's just true. Now the title is true. Oh my God, dude. You're killing me.
The right. And so, yes, the right still does a ton of like shady, dark influence stuff. But if you look
Sky
at
needs sleep. Thank you for the $2. Get paid. Have some dough. What's this about? Sorry, you got a whole watch thing. I'm not gonna explain it every time someone jumps in.
Programs like Turning Point, which I've reported on a bunch myself, it is very like public in this way. And I wonder, and my question would be to 1630 and to Chorus, which they're not talking to me, but my question to them would be, why not just do it publicly? Why not just, why have these weird things where if it gets disclosed, it makes you seem untrustworthy? Like, why not just make this a public program? Wouldn't that get more people involved? It seems like a lot of these people, like the fans of these people, would be excited for their favorite liberal creators to get funding, as long as they don't feel duped about it. So
what is
I don't know.
I'm just kind of curious because I've heard this term thrown around a lot. When you say that, like, or if somebody says that, like, so Chorus exists and then they are funded by the 1630 fund. When we say dark money, I guess, what is your definition of dark money? Or how much?
Yes.
Yeah, how far back do you have to go for it to not?
This might be where I really disagree with Destiny, because he thinks dark money's not a problem.
Dark money, yeah.
Definitely. So actually, I had Anna Mascolia, who is one of the, and I definitely butchered her last name, but she was managing editor at Open Secrets for like 7 years. She publishes a newsletter called Influence Watch. She is one of the
Nicholas, show me where it says they had to toe the party line, boost the party line. That's just not true. You can just assert it, but I could say God's real. It's non-falsifiable because she won't show where it shows that they had to do that. And according to all of these influencers and based on their videos, there's no through line of them all saying the same thing, other than they're not MAGA. So it's ridiculous, unless that's what she meant, which is not what it was implying.
Foremost journalists in the country talking about dark money. And I just made a video with her that's out today actually answering this question. So I'll try to summarize what she told me. But basically dark money just means that you don't know.
No one claims that, dude. Okay, you're being naive.
It's a political, like,
that's what the article is implying, obviously. That's why everyone is walking away thinking people fabricated the idea that Alyssa Slotkin is good. That's why everyone is walking away thinking these people were paid to shill and not talk about Gaza. That's what the article is implying. It doesn't say this. It just says they were towing the party line, but that is misleading. That is what people are coming away from the article from, and that's because of the way it was written. And if you think that is, no matter what, you couldn't more factually, more unbiasedly report on this, I don't know what to tell you.
Like a entity that has
it says it in the title, dude.
Structure that is meant to evade, that is for political purposes. That also you don't have, I'm butchering it, but like you don't have to know who funds it. So the big issue with 1630 Fund or some of these other big dark money groups, do they do a lot of great work? Yeah, I mean 1630's funded a ton of like reproductive justice stuff. Like, I'm not saying like they're evil in some way, just the way that a lot of conservatives wouldn't say Koch Network is evil. They believe that they're doing good, but we don't know who funds them. And the only way we find out who funds them is if people self-disclose. So sometimes public organizations disclose, like public Fortune 500 companies will donate to these funds, and sometimes they'll disclose. But lots of billionaires and foreign, billionaires and stuff will donate to these things, and we don't know. And so, this is why one creator, I don't know if you saw him, I forgot his name, but his TikTok went kind of viral. He was actually asked to be part of this 1630 funding program with Chorus, and Chorus is described as a project of the 1630 fund in the contracts. He said, listen, I have security clearance. I have security clearance in whatever the government, and to maintain that security clearance, I have to be able to prove that I have never accepted money from any sort of foreign adversary. If I take money from a dark money group, you don't know where that money ultimately originated from, and so he couldn't join the program.
I don't know if that sounds not accurate to me, because if you don't know where the money's coming from, how can the foreign money be a corrupting influence?
Well, that's a really good question, right? Is that you don't know. So they're not directly corrupting you in the sense of like, they're not like, ooh,
That's true, Ziri. That's the first thing you've said that I fully 100% endorse.
The question, I think,
it is much more reasonable to believe what you read in the newspaper than the internet. That is true. I hate all the alt media people.
Groups is because we don't know who's funding them. We don't know how much that's impacting their legislative agenda. We don't know how much that's impacting their policy initiatives. We don't know if some big funder.
If you fill out like an SF-86 and you've had to, well, I'm not talking about the lawmakers, I'm talking about clearance form. Like generally when you're doing your SF-86 background checks, you're talking to people to make sure that they don't have foreign relationships that they aren't disclosing to the government because those can be corrupting or be used for leverage.
Well, hold on, Nicholas. This is true. You said they would not be getting paid if they didn't already have the opinion these people want. I believe that is true. That's why they're not funding MAGA people. This is a partisan, even though they claim to be nonpartisan. If you want to say this is one of those like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, based on legalese, we're not allowed to specifically fund a party, but we can pick and choose who we fund. And these people are all anywhere from center left to progressive. Yeah, that's true. And yes, this money can have an influence on these people insofar as they might be scared to change their opinions. Now that's a story. That is not what is in here. You're not saying, hey, these creators wanted to report on this, but they felt like nervous about it. They nervous about the contract before they signed, and some of them didn't. But that's a whole nother story. And I think that's a very valid concern of how can money corrupt people? But that's not what the article says. We're not talking about that. We're not going in and saying, hey, like what could and couldn't you report on? Or what did you feel pressured not to report on? And clearly all of them could report on different things because there's a wide spectrum of people criticizing Biden, not criticizing Biden, criticizing Israel-Palestine, not criticizing Israel-Palestine. That's not, hey, they had to get paid to toe the party line and no one switched their opinions.
Travel or whatever. So I just don't understand like a dark money. Like it's like imagine somebody's bribing you, but it's just $10,000 shows up in your mailbox and you don't.
Yes, Sniper, my opinion would completely change. If the contract comes out and Chorus, like it shows like legally all the lawyers look, like third-party lawyers are looking and they're like, yo, this literally just says you'd get kicked off if you disclose anything. They couldn't like go in XYZ direction. Yeah, 100%. But the point is that hasn't been established, which is my problem with this article.
Where it comes from. I don't know how that could
be
like,
you'll have to take it up with him, but what he says on TikTok, and he's public and he's been answering people's questions on TikTok, so you should definitely go ask him. But what he said is that he had to prove basically that he had never received foreign money from certain places. His name, let me just get his name for you guys, because then you can go yourselves and
But also
and
it wouldn't be receiving foreign money, it'd be receiving money from the 1630 fund, right?
Well, so, but the foreign money could, and we're saying foreign, basically money that he couldn't accept could be funded there. Hold on, let me just grab this. It's Shane Morris.
Okay, sure.
So if you go on Shane Morris, you guys can go ask him these questions.
But
now,
like, if I have a W-2 employee and I get paid and I make money for different things, like that W-2 employee, they only have to disclose they're being paid by LLC. It doesn't matter where my money comes from, right? Yeah.
Well, you should ask this to Shane, who's very public and is talking about this. I did not talk to Shane for my story, so please don't drag him, because people keep saying he's my source and he is somebody that I saw actually after my story came out. But I think the issue is that we don't know
the screenshots are real death
on a
awaits
1630 funds agenda or policy agenda or programs, and so that's the concern with dark money. Is I personally would not feel comfortable as a journalist taking money from somebody where I don't know where that money is coming from, because I want to have a certain level of transparency and I want to be able to communicate to my audience, hey guys, I've never taken money from XYZ. I've never taken money from Mark Andreessen, for instance, and I never would. And that is something that I feel like I can communicate confidently to my audience because I know exactly who funds me. And I think one problem with these dark money groups
is going to bring up the 1630 funding the
funds them. And we just deserve more
group that funds her reporting
across the board. You're right. This is a structural problem. This is not something that the creators.
He's bringing it up. I think he's got the receipts. He made a big thread about this.
Dark money groups really do, which is not even related to the course thing, is they're funding the PACs, right, and the super PACs. So PACs, of course, have to disclose, and they have to. I think you're part of one, right? You have to disclose.
I'm not part of any PAC.
Oh, you're not. Okay, take it back. I for some reason I thought you were. Anyway, but you know what a PAC is, right? The super PACs or whatever. So what these dark money groups will do is they'll sort of spin up. There'll be a dark money fund spin up, or they'll sort of spin off like a shell.
I don't know what they're allowed to release,
and so we
but
still
they
don't really
should.
have transparency because we don't know who funded that dark money group. Now it's just a black box of money, and that black box of money is funding the PAC that's then doing political activity. So we just want a lot more transparency.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, because I'm kind of curious, because it's hard to differentiate between all these organizations. So obviously, a lot of people have said I was part of some PAC because I did a couple activations, I guess, with Progressive Victory a while ago. But I've seen people attack you over the Amidia or whatever.
Amidia. I'm in a journalism fellowship right now. So
but I'm just curious because of that, because they use that same like hybrid funding methodology to where the group that you work for, they are also funded by their 501c4.
No. So I'm funded by I'm in an investigative journalism fellowship that one, I just should very much be very clear about, is not political. Okay, I'm not part of any political program or anything like that. This is an investigative reporting fellowship.
Now notice what you're saying. I'm just being paid to be an investigative reporter. Okay, but they know what your politics are. This is the same thing as Chorus.
Political, nonpartisan. It is just to support investigative journalism. It is funded by Pierre Omidyar, who's a billionaire. Now, Pierre Omidyar himself has donated to dark money, just the way that Lorraine Powell Jobs.
Well, no, the Omidyar network is a hybrid. I think it's a 527 on one end and then a 501c4, and the 527 is able to bill about $15 million a year to the 501c4 quote unquote dark money thing. What you say about being an independent journalist, couldn't somebody just who's part of Chorus say the same thing? And then you can challenge
because I know where 100% of the funding for my program comes from, which is directly from Pierre Omidyar. And Omidyar came out and gave a statement making this
so
clear
you're
that
like
they have not received any
1099
other
by
funding
him
sources.
personally. You're not taking money from the entity
The entity that I am part of, which is the Reporters in Residence program.
Yeah,
The
well, no, I'm
Reporters
talking
in
about the
Residence
federal
program.
taxed entity. That entity is part of a hybrid structure that does get money through the OC4.
No, they're funded by Pierre Omidyar. So Pierre Omidyar is a billionaire. So you're confusing it. So dark money doesn't fund billionaires. Billionaires fund dark money.
Sure.
So
well, just
billionaires.
you're part of. I can see their 990 apps. Like they file these things publicly. They bill about $15 million a year. I think it was like $14.6 million last year to their partner 501c4. You can read on the Omidyar network website that they operate in
part of, right. And I'm not part of any of that. I'm only part of the Reporters in Residence program, which gets 100% of its funding from Pierre Omidyar. That's his fund. That's what he funds it for. So now Pierre Omidyar himself, you're right, has given to dark money funds and does his own political things. I'm not disputing that, but I know where my money comes from. Where I'm like, okay, do I feel comfortable taking this fellowship that is Pierre Omidyar's money? I personally do, because he funds The Intercept and he funds a lot of journalism programs. And it's also, I've worked for billionaires. Unfortunately, my entire journalism career, I worked for The Atlantic as well. That's funded by Lorraine Powell Jobs, who I'm sure also gives money to dark money groups. Jeff Bezos.
For the Chorus people that reached out to you for their paychecks, were they signed by like the 1630 fund, or were they signed by like the Chorus network?
As far as I understand, it was 1630. As far as I understand.
But you haven't seen any like deposits or check slips or anything?
I don't remember, but in the communication.
Now she's claiming that, I don't think this matters, right? If you're saying the dark money group funds a group and that group is signing the paychecks, even though I know they're coming from the group, the money's coming from the dark money. I can see the issue with that. But I think the idea that she's claiming that Omidyar pays her directly, I don't know if that's true. I think if you look at the receipts, I don't have them up right now, but it's like the 1630 or a dark money group pays two of these subsidiaries or like connected works, and one of those subsidiaries pays her reporter's residency thing. But I could be wrong about that.
And they say in the communication that we have, they say that it will say 1630 on it.
Gotcha.
And that's why like the contracts and stuff again. And I'm not saying that like these creators are evil for accepting this money. I think they're like what liberals will have, many people, and Anna clarifies this in the video that I made as well. Like what many of them will say is like, look, I don't like the system either, right? Like I don't like the system either. I think that this is bad. I think the Koch network is evil. But until we change these laws, I think we should leverage it, and I feel comfortable taking this money, whatever. What I would say to them is that's totally your decision, right? Like you've made that. I'm a journalist. I hold different standards.
She's getting money from something that's public. The thing that gets money, in the same way that Chorus is public, gets it from a dark money PAC 1630. I think that the thing that she gets money from, the Reporters Fellowship thing, is public, and then the thing that funds the Reporters Fellowship, she's claiming it's directly through Omidyar. I don't think that's true, but we'll see.
But you're a political activist. Maybe you feel totally fine.
I understand what you're saying, but your checks are not signed by that PR guy. Your checks are signed by, I'm guessing it says the Omidyar network or whatever, right?
I actually don't know because I haven't gotten paid, but I would imagine that it says the Reporters in Residence, the LLC they're paid for. It's part of. It's
I don't
LLC,
think I'm going to make a video about
the
this.
LLC that's the other hybrid.
It's 100%. No, it's not hybrid. That's 100% funded by Pierre Omidyar. And
it
if
is
you want
absolutely not. It's not. You can read their filings. It's just not.
You can, but you might be confused by their filings. But here, if you click on this Omidyar Network Support Approach to Funding Journalism, they issued a statement right here.
I see the statement at the end. It says the work is supported entirely via our foundation and LLC. That foundation is the hybrid foundation that includes the 501c4. They're 90
I understand what you're saying, but
yeah.
when it comes to the Reporters in Residence program, we do know where the funding comes from. So I'm with you, Stephen. I know that they also do political stuff and all of that, and the foundation itself is completely separate. That was something that I was like, obviously we're all aware of, but I know personally where my money comes from. And the issue that some people feel that they have a problem with dark money is that they don't necessarily know where that money comes from.
Sure.
And so that is the argument that I think.
The idea that, okay, just because this LLC and organization might have dark money funding, specifically there is a subset of that funding that goes to me and I know where that's from, I don't think that holds water.
Remains to be made. And again, some of them are fun. They might say, like these reproductive justice activists, right, that also take money from 1630. They're like, yeah, okay, I don't know where all the money comes. Maybe it is from an evil billionaire that I completely disagree with, but I'm going to take that money anyway and I'm going to use it for a good cause. I think that you can make that argument. And I'm not shaming anyone,
I appreciate her saying this because I would make that argument if I didn't know where the money was coming from.
As you noted, this program that I'm in sent out a press release the day. There's all the information that you can find is public. And the reason that you're able to find those documents.
Like none of the contracts have been published for those creators that are there, right?
Well, right, because it's not public. Their contracts are not public. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well, I'm saying, but there's not transparency there, right? Well, I don't know what your contract looks like. I don't know. Like none of what they put on this website is legally binding. They're just writing a thing and they're saying it's supported entirely via the foundation and LLC. But I can't look at the specific funding mechanisms that are routed through.
Well,
the
and there's no
LLC,
right. And if you found like evidence or something, like what I would say is that if somebody reported on that program and was able to find evidence that the network had lied or had not disclosed and there was a secret funder, that would be an amazing article that somebody could write, right? Like just the way that the Chorus, it's like, oh wow, 1630 fund is behind them. Actually, that's confusing. Whatever. What I would say is, again, Pierre Omidyar is a billionaire. So billionaires fund dark money groups. Dark money groups they don't just go around giving billionaires money. Billionaires are the funders. So I have made the decision, unfortunately, that I have taken money from billionaires ultimately working for either doing an investigative journalism fellowship or working at these billionaire-owned media companies. I don't love it. It's part of the reason I went independent, but at least I'm comfortable with the people that I'm taking money from. There are billionaires that I would never take money from. For instance, Mark Andreessen and others. And so I think that that's a conversation that we need to have, but I'm comfortable with the level that I've had of disclosure. And I think that that's what we need to focus on is the lack of disclosure in the political space. Because that's another thing that's different, right? I'm not in a political program. I'm in an investigative journalism fellowship. I'm not doing political activism.
Well, Chorus is also not supposed to be in a political program as well, right? Like I think
no, Chorus is political. Chorus is the whole reason that Chorus exists is to fix the Democrats' internet content creator problem. And to
Isn't
boost
the stated
Democrat-
mission, the stated goal is like basically just informing people on democracy and stuff like that?
The soy poll, if it's so innocent, why is there secrecy? Why not disclose it? Well, the 1630 stuff funding Chorus is disclosed. That's the thing. Now, whether the creators knew it was 1630 or like, look, if you sign up for this program and they're like, we're helping you out, we're giving you money. First of all, I don't think them giving you money to help make, become a content creator, but not make content specifically is something necessarily that would cross your mind as like, oh, I should definitely tell people that like I'm, having a part of a little program that's helping me make better content. But let's just say you did. You wouldn't know where the 1630 fund is funding it from. You would just know about Chorus. Like, you could look it up and it's public, but that's not something that necessarily is going to be like, yeah, I got to know where every single dollar of people who donate to this like is coming from necessarily. Now, I'd prefer it. I think people should disclose and you can look it up. But the idea that this is like, oh, like they didn't know and it was shady and like they should have said, and it's like, I don't see that. I don't see it. And this is painting as malicious. And you guys, some of the chatters are proving my point in real time, right? Because on one hand, we can say the very innocent belief and through line of Taylor's article is people should disclose more. And that's good. I think people should disclose more, right? But that's not what the article is showing. It's painting it as shady. And that's why so many people are like, this is crazy shady. Look at all these dirty influencers who didn't know like where the money was coming from and they should have disclosed it. And that's crazy. And they weren't talking about Gaza because of that money. It was influencing. We don't know any of that, okay? Death awaits, thank you for $5. If I donate soy and I get paid by my employer, and my employer gets paid by dark money, soy is funded by dark money. True. All hail the soy dad. Hey, if I get into Chorus, I'll be paid by dark money. I recommend everyone to watch Botswicky's video on Taylor Lorenz, and when she was working at the New York Times, it has aged beautifully. I will check that out later. Thank you, Delbert.
Like, I think that it's expressly supposed to be.
I don't know what they have, but I'll tell you.
Oh my God, guys, holy shit. Shady is true. Yes. Not knowing who's funding 1630 is shady because you don't know where the money is coming from. The creators not disclosing that they were taking money from Chorus to do a creator program that had nothing to do with the content they were making that was funded by 1630 is a lot less shady, although I'd prefer to know it. I don't think that's nearly even close to as malicious as the idea of you donating infinite amounts of money into these dark money funds that can go wherever they want, even if it is going to good things. Specifically one of those good things, ending dark money. I think that's a really big fucking deal.
Let's see. This is how Brian Tyler Cohen described it in the New York
Thank
Times.
you, Jen. Yes.
Here's how he's talking about launching Chorus. We have an obligation to do it, to launch Chorus, because the Democratic Party has been so slow in adapting to the media environment we're in right now. And so what the goal is, according to this article, which is the launch article that Ken Bensinger wrote, is their goal is to help the Democrats. Again, that's not a secret.
Sure. I think that's a way that you could read that. But I mean, you could also just say that like the values and things that I aligned with the Democratic Party on, the other things that I imagine the 1630 Fund supports, the Democrats have done a poor job at that messaging, so they want to reach out and educate creators and everything in order to, I guess, like advocate more.
Help the Democrats. Yeah, to help the Democrats.
Not help the Democrats, but to like support things like ballot initiatives related to abortion or legalization of marijuana. I don't know, whatever the 1630
Fund democratic policies that Democrats
support. They're policies.
Here's the thing. On this specifically, Progressive Victory paid counterpoints. Counterpoints is a Republican. He's a never Trump Republican, but he's a Republican. So they're not exclusively funding Democrats. They're funding people that agree with their mission. Now, whether or not that's political, well, their mission statement is to spread progressive values, get people to be more engaged. He happens to be one of those people that they think is like a ally in this case, and that's why he's being paid to do it. But it's not like only Democrats, right? Like, this isn't... This is so silly. This isn't like, like we're picking and choosing only the idea that it's shady to say like we want to pay people who will do the things that we align with is so obvious to me. Like, hey, like if we said in the contract, if you decide to become a full-on MAGA and say that voting isn't good, we won't pay you. And it's like, oh my God, they controlled their speech. It's like, well, I wanted to give money to people to spread a message I agreed with, and they decided to do the opposite of that. That's not shady. That's just, oh, well, this person's like not aligned with me. Why would I continue to help them?
Not necessarily helping the Democrats, right? Like there's no formal connection to the
Yes, Zero, they should release the contracts if they can. And I think they're trying to do that through Wired, or at least they should.
The 1630 Fund has funded, they funded RFK, I believe. They had some sort of weird funding thing with RFK, so I guess, yeah, maybe. But what I would say is I don't think it's a secret that Chorus is meant, the whole nature of Chorus is to help Democrats, fix and get back in power. Yeah,
Ziri, thank you, Ziri, for saying it's sensationalized, because it is.
Chorus, and the center of my article is disclosure, and it doesn't sound like we disagree on that. And I think that you can litigate a lot, and you can say all this stuff about.
Sure, I don't understand the difference between like Chorus and the Omidyar network is. It feels like the same. Like the Reporters and Residents program is a program that's funded via the C4 that the Omidyar network runs, and the same way Chorus is funded by the C4 part of the 1630
Fund. I think you're confused. So again, my investigative journalism fellowship is not a political program.
It doesn't matter if it's a political program. It's funded by a dark money foundation.
No, it's not. It's just not. It's just not true that the Reporters and Residents program is funded by dark money. It's funded by Pierre Omidyar.
it's not,
who is the
your
sole
paychecks are
funder.
not, so you're a 1099.
I have actually not
employee,
even received. You know what, Stephen? I have
you
not
keep saying
received
this,
a
but
paycheck.
you're not getting paid by him personally, right? If I pay an employee something through my company, that's not me personally giving
But
them money.
I
That's
know,
my company
but there's
paying
a
them.
level of transparency that I know where the money came from, and that is
But that's not publicly disclosed to any of us, which is the transparency that you're asking for, right?
They publicly disclose it in this. They publicly disclose it right here.
If this counts as public disclosure with no tax forms published, then Brian Tyler Cohen counts as public disclosure when he refutes parts of the contract, right? Why would he be demanded to publish the contract, but Omidyar Network can just be taken at face value for?
Omidyar Network is not a political group. I don't know what you're trying.
They're not, but it functions as a super PAC. It functions as
no,
a.
it's not a super PAC either. Stephen, I think you're very confused. So part of, and I encourage you to read Anna's work, and maybe you could have Anna on your stream actually to talk about this, because Anna covers dark money, and she can go into all of this detail where she can explain to you the nuances that might really help you understand. Part of what makes a money or group a dark money group is the political nature of the group. So it's not just any group, and this is why people were thinking like, oh, the NAACP is a dark money org, like that's something people on Threads are saying. You have to be doing sort of specific political activities as far as she worked at Open
It's called
Secrets,
Blue MAGA, G-Free, not Left MAGA.
Description of it. There is that political nature to it. So I think that I don't know, I can't answer these specific tax questions of that you're having about certain forms and things. But I know that Anna is somebody who I trust, who is one of the top reporters in the country on dark money. She does explain the difference between the stuff in the video on my channel. I personally did not work at Open Secrets for 7 years, so I'm sorry that I can't litigate all those little things. But I do feel confident in saying that I know where every dollar that I received came from and who's paying the bills.
Sure. So
I know that.
I'm just curious. So for the Omidyar Network, because I read their site, they operate a dual 501c3 and an LLC structure. Do you know every dollar that goes into the LLC?
Yes, I asked about this when I accepted this fellowship, and I know that it's from
they gave you a profit and loss. They've given you some kind of tax filing, 1040, 1120s.
They gave me enough information that I completely trust them. Yeah,
but then you're taking it on word from a billionaire, right?
No, I'm not taking it on word from a billionaire. I'm taking it from. I mean, they provided me evidence showing that, and I believe them. And you're right.
But to the outside world, it's a dark money. It's a dark money fund, right? Because we don't know what goes into the LLC. No, wait, how is it not dark money? Can they not accept an infinite amount of money from people that don't have to disclose?
This is not an LLC that pays investigative journalists. Is not dark money. Again, you're missing the key part, Stephen.
He's kind of got her here. Okay, look, if you don't know where the money is coming from, you can't just say, well, the political thing is changing whether or not it becomes dark money. No. First of all, there's specific journalists that they choose. Honestly, I want to look at these journalists and say, are any of these people, who are these people, and are any of them right wing? So we've got Jacob Ward. Let's see. NBC News, Hacking Your Mind. Correspondent for Al Jazeera. Okay, so this guy looks like he's kind of left wing, based on what I can tell. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Because I'm just doing a glance over this. Julia Black. Okay, this is not helpful. This is awful. To be fair, all of these people could be more independent. The point is, anyway, is that the LLC that's funding them, if we as an outside group don't know where it's coming from, we just have to take Taylor's word that this is oh, I've seen all of it and I trust them. It's well, you could just say that about 1630. 1630 could say hey, we know some of this stuff. Some of these people are, what's it called? You're not going to find masses of right-wing journalists. No need to compare her against the general. That's true. They are more left-wing than average. Well, unfortunately, reality does have the left-wing bias.
Investigative journalism can't be political in nature?
So the program that I'm in is not a political program, and it is not for political
Sorry
purposes,
for the Elon jump
and
scare.
it is completely nonpartisan. I'm not a Democrat. And in fact, what I would say to you, Stephen, is if Omidyar is so involved in dark money and 1630 fund or whatever, me reporting critically on one of his investments shows that I'm editorially independent from whoever is
what
paying.
You're saying is the same argument a lot of content creators and chorus use when they said said negative things about the Democratic Party. David Pakman just said that. Or they've said negative things about the war in Israel.
I think that they're right. Oh, the Israel stuff we should talk about too. I think that does. I agree with them. I think that is evidence of their editorial independence. And I've said from the jump, and if you read our story again, our story doesn't say that they were given talking points, especially about Israel and all of that stuff.
Okay, our story doesn't say they were giving talking points, especially about Israel. But if you read the thing and it says $8,000 a month to push the party line. By the way, the Democrat Party line is pro-Israel right now. None of them are doing anything to restrict any of the funding. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to the restrictions on their content. That is the implication of the article. So she's walking that back.
I think didn't say that they didn't carry the content line.
Interrupting me.
Because you keep pivoting. I think you said
I'm
that
not pivoting.
It sounded like they had a lot of
questions.
They had a lot of content.
This is very unproductive. Ultimately, I don't know what to tell you other than I am not involved in a political program. I am doing an investigative journalism fellowship that is not. The goal of that program is not political. And I do think that should investigative journalists also, have more transparency around their program, sure. But political content creators taking political money, in my opinion, should disclose and should ask a lot of questions because there's a lot of money aimed at influencing politics. Unfortunately, there's not as much money paying investigative journalists. Nobody's doing that. It's a charity, basically. Whereas there's a lot of money in the political system to influence specific political outcomes. That's a key difference.
My understanding when you read about Chorus is that one of the earlier lines was that they had restrictions on the political content that the content creators could make. That's not like a part of the contract.
So one thing that the story says is that there were restrictions on the content, but we're not talking about specific, like, you know, I don't know what it says in terms of like Chorus's policy agenda or whatever, but you can read the language in the article.
Sure, it says among other issues, it mandated extensive secrecy about disclosing their payments and had restrictions on what sort of political content the creators could produce. So that was like in the contract, it said you were not allowed to produce this type of like conservative content or pro Palestine
I didn't see
content.
them use, no. Well, one thing that I think, if we could move on to that I think would be more productive, is to discuss this Israel question, because that is something that a lot of people have had questions
the Israel
about.
question.
Speculation
That's
about
very
online,
close to a
where people
different
have said,
kind
oh,
of
they're
question.
paid not to talk about Israel. Da, da, da. Nowhere in our article does it make that claim. Nowhere, and that is something that I think people brought up. It is something that I looked into. There are content creators in this program that have spoken about Palestine, and I think that you know, a lot of people have sort of taken the article, which is paywalled, and this is another problem.
Wait. Taylor yelled at me once when I made a comment about how it's not hurtful to keep masking up for those with autoimmune disorders. I don't believe that, Death Awaits. She's like the most pro-mask person ever. This is like one of the few times you'll see her without a mask. Is that true? That's crazy.
Well, so I don't think a lot of people read the full article, but I just do want to make it clear that I think some of what these content creators like David Pakman have refuted are actually not claims ever made in our article.
Well, but everybody else is making.
Oh, wait. You're saying she yelled at you for saying you shouldn't mask up for people. Okay.
Is making these claims, and that's what the article
Hey,
said.
if you can mask and it's not a big deal to you in you know, subways and trains and all that, I say go for it.
It's like, why is there so much ubiquitous, I guess, like confusion on that side? Well, it seems to be pointed in one direction.
Yeah, it's not one direction. I think people, unfortunately, once you publish something, people take a lot of, you know, people take your stuff and make claims, and I try to debunk it as best I can.
Ooh, I really want to watch her on the Vanguard now. I want to see what she says.
And share information that I have, but I think that part of what's driving all of that, I mean, aside from the fact that Gaza is such a dividing issue among so many people online, in the sort of the left sphere, is that we don't know the full makeup of the Chorus program. So we still don't have a roster. This is another argument for transparency. Omidyar, not like my Omidyar Reporters in Residence program, like we know everyone that's in it, right? We don't know with the Chorus cohort. They told
to be clear, we don't know everybody that's in it. We know the PR statement that they put out, but we don't have like tax filings or anything. We don't see all of their payroll. We don't see all of the disbursements that the companies made, right?
On Chorus? What are you talking about?
No, on
a Omidyar
network, right? On the LLC. They announced, so these are just statements, right? We don't have any tax filings, any proof.
Stephen, it would be a great news story if they announced that. Why would they? Okay. First of all, they announced the public roster saying, hey guys, here's who are the newest members of our reporting fellowship. Now, if you think that there are secret journalists that are also part of the reporting fellowship that they didn't announce, I really encourage anyone to find that story. That would be a crazy story. I've been on the Zoom calls. I've never seen anybody that was not announced as part of the program on our Zoom meetups. That would be very silly, and there's no reason to hide who's in an investigative journalism fellowship. With the Chorus program, we know who some creators are in the program, but we don't know the full 90. And so what you're seeing a lot of creators on the left say is, hey, we don't know who's in this program. We just know out of this cohort, XYZ amount of creators have
I wish I was in Chorus.
About Gaza.
I hope I get accepted.
They're sort of extrapolating a lot.
And I will disclose.
Hey guys, before you make a lot of
and I will get kicked out if they do some shady shit to me.
To publish the full roster. Let's encourage more creators to come forward themselves and talk about it if they're able to, so that we have a better picture of the ideological makeup. Because I just don't think we have enough information to know the true ideological makeup of this cohort without knowing people who are in it. I was able to confirm a couple dozen creators, but 90 creators, we just don't know. You know, we could have a lot.
But like, what does that even mean? The ideological makeup? Is this off of a singular issue, off of Israel-Palestine? And then now, if all of these people get harassed who have been like named in the story, then doesn't that just mean? So then we're not actually looking for transparency at all. We're just looking to make sure that they're, you know, in alignment on this particular issue.
Well, some people, the people who care about that issue. So, for instance, with Gaza, right, Stephen, you would agree. A lot of people online care about this issue.
Yeah.
So they want to know.
About it even, I think. Yeah.
I know who hates me and finally had me on his show after shitting on me for years and years. You know, for people who care a lot about Gaza and they really want to know who in this program is pro-Palestine, who in this program has said what.
Almost 10 minutes behind now. Oh, geez.
Right now, we just don't have that level of transparency. And so I think one thing that would be helpful for this program and any programs in the future is to have more transparency. So people can look and say, hey, 50% of creators in this program haven't spoken up about abortion, haven't spoken up about Gaza, have said this.
Why would the masking matter about your eyes?
Rolling back Section 230, whereas 50% support fighting Section 230. I don't know. I just think these are tech policy things that I care about. But like, I think that the more transparency, the better, and the less there are going to be this sort of like speculation. Because I think
is the issue, is the scary thing that people are being funded through various means, or that they just don't align politically enough with the people that want to witch hunt them? Because this just sounds like now we just want to see the full list of people to make sure that they are aligned on like the monoculture issue.
I think that personally, I don't really care where these people want to stand on whatever issue that they want to stand on.
Well, yeah, but you're publishing these articles that are being used by other people as basically
no.
People,
those people, they can take my article and use it however they want. Those people that are very focused on sole issues, right? They're going to take any announcement of any program. I've reported on other programs, by the way, that they've done the same thing to you, right? Where they're like, well, where is this program on XYZ issue? And a lot of people care about. I mean, we saw this in the lead up to Harris's election. We saw a lot about Gaza, but we also saw this exact same thing happen on other.
Yeah, but Nicholas, I would just say, hey, I'm paid by Chorus. They're paid by 1630. We don't know 100% of where the money comes from. But you know where else we don't know where the money comes from? Every single super chat and viewer, because they don't have their whole full legal names. Now, the amount of money is going to be a little different, and that does matter. But at least you know that I'm being paid by these people, but just because I don't know where they are, first of all, that means I can't be influenced by their opinions because I have no idea what the fuck they want me to say. But you can have a valid concern of, hey, is Soy shifting his opinions because he's getting money from a group that happens to be aligned with these groups, and you can question me on that, and I fully open and welcome it.
Like, I mean, look at Gen Z for Change. Remember that back in 2020, or sorry, TikTok for Biden? There were so many conversations around like, well, who out of this cohort is for what? Like, that's just something that people want to know. And so I am saying, in the interest of transparency, it would behoove any of these organizations to be clear about their roster, because clearly there are activists online who care about specific issues, who want to know where these different cohorts stand, or who maybe want to reach out across the aisle and say, look, I've noticed that 70% of your creators haven't spoken about reproductive justice.
Thanks, Gio.
So I'd like to reach out and educate you guys on this issue. Just more transparency is better across the board for no matter what. It alleviates all of this sort of...
Zero, if you want to give me $8,000 a month to promote my content, that'd be awesome, buddy. But there's a reason contracts are involved.
Speculation, and it just provides more opportunities, I think, for everyone to sort of build that trust.
I feel bad that I
Sure.
took that 50 and you didn't ask for anything.
On some of these shows, on a lot of these leftist shows, have you corrected anybody who is running with that?
I have tried to correct people, and I actually asked...
Okay, that's good.
To,
she says she's correcting.
title
Let's see if Vanguard corrects it. She does, because I would respect her a lot if she does this.
on something, and I'm doing a TV hit tomorrow, like a television hit, and they literally reached out to me about with like misleading framing, and I was like, hey, before I hop on,
Yes, Timber, they're obviously different.
What the actual article says, and
Especially
I
with the
just
scale
sent
of
an email
money.
to another podcast last night trying to debunk. Like, I don't think they'd even read the article, and they were going to cover it. So
sure, but
I get it.
with,
It's paywall,
particularly with because I'm pretty sure you told Glenn Greenwald that you felt that the Democratic establishment had chosen neoliberal content creators based on their position on whether or not it was a genocide in the Gaza Strip. Like, that was one of the things I think you said to Glenn Greenwald. So it seems like that's feeding like really heavily.
No. I think that traditionally during the campaign, maybe is that what you're thinking about? I was talking about during the campaign.
But it's in an interview while you're talking about your article, and this is the assumption that every other person who's read your pieces is running with it.
I think we're very explicitly talking about during the DNC. But yeah, I tried to correct it. I'm in the TikTok comments. If you see me in the TikTok comments, I'm saying, hey guys, just wanted to fact check this, and I just shared a video on Instagram. I literally just reposted a guy like. I think I reposted it, I commented, I can't remember, but saying, hey guys, here's what's true, here's what's not true. And I when I have time, I will make a more thorough video. Sometimes I try to do like a TikTok where I'm like, hey guys, here's the 10 craziest claims about my article. Like, let me share, kind of like debunk some of that.
They need contracts, Zero, because they're not just getting paid money. They're getting paid a stipend to be part of a training program, right? And you have to have like an agreement of like, hey, this is what we expect of you. You're going to these meetings. You're showing us progress that like our investment is doing something. Because otherwise it's like me and a friend, and I can go up to a friend and say, hey, I'll give you $50. You want to go get me groceries? And then he doesn't do it. And it's not like some big fucking scandal. But if I give him $8,000, if I didn't have utmost trust of my friend, if I'm going to give $8,000 to anyone, I'm going to want to sign a fucking contract.
Say that, like, as it stands right now, based on what you've seen from Chorus, there's no.
Has a fan ever paid you enough that you could quit my job? Nicholas, actually, I quit my job in February. This is my full-time job. Now, it's a little sketchy. I'm trying to build up all my different things, and that's why Chorus would be great for me, because they'd show me how to expand and make sure I've got different revenue streams. But Ash, who you will see as a top tier on my Patreon, who I haven't heard from in a while, she hasn't been in the chat, decided to just give me a bunch of money, like $100 a month, which is like, it's not going to pay my rent, but like, for one person to give that much is insane. And I'm like super appreciative of it. And I have no idea why she likes my content that much or is able to give me that much. And I actually like went behind the scenes. I was like, are you fucking sure? Like, it's not enough to quit my job, obviously. It's a collective from everyone giving me in the ad revenue. But just like the idea that one person is like, yeah, here is $1,000 a year is wild. And I wanted to make sure she didn't like dip into her savings or something crazy. Because I'm like, look, I can, if I went broke today, I could figure it out. Okay. I don't know other people, if they're disabled, what their situation is, what their family situation is. Yeah. So, Ash, come back. Where are you?
Guiding or telling content creators that were part of Chorus what type of content they could make or what political positions they had to have.
So they didn't give people explicit talking points. They didn't. They have these daily messaging check-ins, and obviously they are sort of letting creators into a cohort based on their own guidelines. We don't know their guidelines.
I could buy 10,000 pennies. Hell yeah.
What criteria they were using to select the creators in their program. Again, more transparency would be great. But as far as I've seen, and
not going to do an OnlyFans.
Stephen, is that we don't make the claim that they were like given talking points, or again, and we had creators reach out to us saying like, I was actually concerned about the Gaza stuff because like maybe it would whatever. But I looked into it and I did not find any evidence that they were preventing people from saying the word Israel or AIPAC or something that some people were claiming.
I'm really glad she's clarifying this right now. I'm going to specifically text her and tell, hey, I respect that you said this, because that is the implication, and I appreciate that she's correcting the record on this, because a lot of people, Majority Report, someone who I respect, like their show, they need to walk back some of the stuff they're saying.
It does a lot of disservice to the journalism, I think, when you have these content creators come, like David Pakman, come on and refute claims that were never made in the article without making it clear.
Well, Hassan Piker also repeated that like these people were basically blocked from talking about Israel-Palestine, or I think Emma Vigilant, I think, also was saying as much that like, oh, they're only allowing people to say good things about Israel. This is why I think a lot of those content creators maybe weren't responding to your article, but how well the leftists had ran with the article.
But I think it's important to respond to, I think it's important when you're debunking an article, especially if you care about building trust in journalism, instead of dismantling trust in journalism, I think it's helpful to say, hey, these claims have not been made in the article, which actually bolsters their point. But of course, they spend so much time trying to discredit the article. But I think it would be helpful for them to say, hey, this claim wasn't made in the article, but let me debunk it. Because again, this is a very hot button issue, and I think it's worth, I know Current Affairs had a piece on this in a while. The Democratic Party does not have a great track record in this area, which I think is also what has, like, I'm talking specifically about the campaign trail and kind of what they did at the DNC. I think that has made a lot of people sort of question.
Siri, Hassan mentioned is the free space. It's a destiny.
That with more transparency. And another thing I could just debunk really quickly, since you're giving me the opportunity, is that we did not mention the DNC in the article, aside from just mentioning that this girl has a pro-DNC meme page. But a lot of people, I think, are conflating this liberal dark money group with the DNC. And I saw poor Shelby at the DNC sort of trying to fact check that. And I think I get that the DNC is a stand-in for things.
Well, it's because you bring up the Democrats a lot, right? Like when you say fierce Democrats
the DNC
is
is a specific organization. And
all contracts are complex legalese zero, all of them. I don't think this looks any more malicious than any contract I've ever signed.
To make it clear that we don't mention that specific.
But I also haven't seen all the contracts, to be fair.
Specific organization. The DNC is used as slang for the establishment in a way that I'm sympathetic to, and I totally have done that myself. But we don't mention the DNC. And I've seen a lot of these creators tweet, for instance, a meme account that was tweeting about the Democrats. They quote tweeted it and said, oh, look, you're paid by the DNC. You're part of the same thing. That account was paid by the DNC, actually, totally separately, but not part of this program. So the DNC has done tons of creator stuff. They have that new guy in place who maybe you should talk
Ken
to,
Martin,
who's their new head of influencer. I think his name is Tim or something, partnerships.
Oh.
But they were not, like, we didn't even reach out to the DNC about this story because they're not.
Sure. So I guess when we say that, like, because I don't know what to call the second title on the article, but
the subhead?
Yeah. So an initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers of $8,000 a month to push the party line, and then all they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. And then you mentioned later on in the article about the Democrats and Joe Biden and campaigns. Like, that feels like a pretty official establishment to your.
Sure. Oh, they're definitely in with the establishment.
Well, like not just like the White House and Joe Biden, and I mean, it feels pretty easy to rope. Like I would understand why anybody would rope the DNC into that, right? If you're talking about literally the party. And
I'm never going to live in a mansion. That would be too above my means.
We mentioned Joe Biden, so they can loop that in an establishment, and sure, but
Destiny's doing a good job here of painting like there's a reason people walk away thinking this is a DNC shill operation, right? You never said that, but that's why it's misleading.
Those people actually.
And to be fair, she would make this argument about other stuff, and there are DNC shills, but this fit into her narrative of this, and I think she's walking it back a little bit.
The article, Stephen, based off a lot of what people have been saying, I just don't think people made it past the paywall. Because if they made it past the paywall, the people, at least that I've interacted with, that are confused about the article, when I send them the text of the article or I send them the remove paywall link, it usually has cleared things up. So.
Okay. I feel like if I wrote an article and this many people had this big of a misunderstanding, I'd be very bothered. But
well, that's why I'm here helping you understand it, because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And I do want to be accountable to people. I pride myself on engaging with lots of people, even if they disagree with me on so many issues. I will always talk to them, hear out their point, hear their feedback. That's how I become a better journalist. If I only talk to people that agree with me or never have criticism of me, I would not become a better journalist. So I appreciate your feedback, and especially your feedback about, the ability to post more source material online. That's certainly something, again, that I've advocated throughout my career and will continue to advocate for. But I like to hear feedback. What I don't like is people doing stupid personal attacks or saying, oh, you're a secret Republican or whatever. Like, that is just so stupid and unproductive and that doesn't do anything to you know what I mean? It's just very silly. Not that you did that, but I just, in terms of why I block people online and stuff like that, it's because I have to know that you're actually coming in good faith.
Okay. All right. Is there any other thing you want to go over related to this, or?
I think that's it. I hope that people can read it, and I hope that they can keep an open mind. I think that a lot of people reflexively might hate the article, right? Because they want the Democrats to win, and they don't want to support any article that they feel like is critical, right? They're like, why are you bashing? Why are you doing a hit piece? What I would say is that I also want the Democrats to win. Obviously, I don't want Trump in power. Of course not. He's a fascist. It's terrible. I don't support the MAGA movement. I'm not a Republican. I want them to have a more effective strategy. And I think before you attack me, look at people like Tina Nguyen or Mia Sato or some of these other journalists that have written so smartly. McKenna Kelly also writes about politics really well on the internet. Like, a lot of people have made similar points that I've made in this story about these broader sort of issues with the Democrats and the Democrats all over, from the DNC to the lawmakers to these groups and stuff, about their sort of media strategy. And I think that we can all agree that the Democrats do need a better media strategy and a better set of policies, I would argue, to reach more people. And so when you read an article like mine, before you get so mad or before you start fighting, on the internet or whatever, please understand that,
Taylor's not a Republican. She just hates Democrats.
More effective program. I've written those pieces, by the way, announcing more transparent programs, or promoted those pieces when I see them in the news and think, wow, that's really great. I have no problem with an effective influencer program. I have no problem if they just say, you know what, guys, we're only doing a neoliberal influencer program. I don't think that's all they should do, but maybe they want to cater to those people online for a while. I don't know. They've been doing that for years, but who cares? That's their prerogative. I think that the issue is transparency, and what we should ask for.
Nicholas, obviously they're aligned. They want Democrats to win.
The more advantage the far right has, because they have more money. If you start to play the dark money game, they're going to win every time. So we want more transparency in the space. We want more transparency from our political media, so we know who we can trust. And Yeah, that's all. But you don't have to I'm not a secret Republican, or I think that it's not that controversial.
Sure. I mean, I agree with I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that was hardly anywhere in the article. I feel like the only prescription I saw from the article was a quote from one person which basically
I
says
didn't put prescriptions in it. Yeah, you're right.
Well, there was a prescription in it, which was that the middleman is bad, basically. That there shouldn't be, that people should just give money directly to content creators. So like that we're supposed to fund the entire Democratic messaging apparatus of super chats and Medium or Substack subscriptions, I guess.
I don't know about that, but I do think less top-down control is good. I mean, if you look at Turning Point as a version of success, right? They have of course some organizational structure, but it's pretty open and collaborative.
Charlie Kirk literally has phone calls with Donald Trump. It is one of the most top-down, heavy organized things. Charlie Kirk is
top-down in terms of in terms of their messaging. But I'm saying it's a big sprawling organization.
Yeah, this top-down structure. They raise a ton of money from people that pay money into them. They all take direction and organizational stuff from Charlie Kirk, who communicates with President Donald Trump. Yeah.
Sure. Top-down in terms of messaging. I guess maybe top-down is the wrong word. Why don't I rephrase it so that you're not confused?
To be clear, I'm not confused. I'm just saying you're advocating for some type of structure like what Charlie Kirk is doing.
There seems to be some confusion between what I'm trying to communicate and how you're receiving it. So let me rephrase it in a way. Yes, exactly. Let me rephrase it in a way so that my message is clear.
Yes.
And that is not an indictment of you. I am just trying to explain what I'm trying to say. I think that more transparency is good, because the more open these programs are, the more people will want to get involved, the more grassroots.
Don't make me join the DGG. I'm not doing that.
The less bad faith attacks.
Don't make me join a
Discord. I mean? I think that is just something that across the board is helpful. I understand the purpose of middlemen. I think there's all these different sort of things that they can serve and not serve. I don't think it helps the Democratic Party to only rely on middlemen. But look at iShowSpeed, who did a great live stream from the Capitol the other day, helped the Democrats, whatever. Adam Faze coordinated that. That was great, right? Like things like that are fine. It's great.
Has there been another organization, like you said, Course had 90 content creators. Is there any organization of this size that has existed so far?
They're the big one. There's a few other, like Vocal Media has done some stuff. There's a Teddy Schleifer actually in the New York Times wrote a really good piece, which might be good for you to review with your audience, on a lot of these different efforts. There's I think it's called Project Bullhorn. There's Project Zero. They all have sort of different goals of some of them are funding creators directly, some are funding.
I'm going to reach out to Taylor and make her give me this list so I can apply for all of them and get so much dark money.
The things you just are listed, are all of those people public with every person that they're paying and where all of their funding sources are from?
I'm never making a Discord. It's not happening. It's the JJ McCullough Discord. Go to it.
Yeah, well, Chorus was the first out of the gate. So a lot of those other programs haven't launched yet, and they're launching now. And so that's why we want to get these discussions going and say, hey guys, look, Chorus is first mover in the space. They're definitely the biggest and the most notable. They got that splashy New York Times profile like 10 days after the election. But now that all the donors are so invested in investing in media, why don't you listen to some of these creators themselves and do it in a little bit more of an open and transparent way. I don't think it's going to hurt them the way that they think that it will. I think it'll actually help them. And if you listen to tweet,
she did that to me too. She was like, "You're just not educated on this COVID thing."
For transparency.
Okay. I hope that transparency is a thing we can all push for, especially in the media environment. I think it's one of the most damaging things right now in the United States is not having that transparency. So, yeah.
And if people want to learn more about dark money, go watch the video that I made with Anna on my YouTube channel. I think she answers a lot of questions. And she also herself is very open to receiving questions and feedback. And if you have further questions, I know she would love to hear from people.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, hey, listen, thanks. I know I'm here to kind of bully you and shout at you, so I appreciate the conversation.
I just want to see.
So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Happy to she's anti. Thank you guys so much.
She's not anti-vax, but she is kind of COVID poisoned. She thinks COVID is like the grand moment of which like everything changed and we're still in the pandemic. People are getting ultra sick constantly, and it's a eugenics program by Joe Biden and the establishment, which I think is overwhelmingly not true. All right, guys, let's really quickly. I want to see if Destiny is incredibly frustrated because he couldn't really get to the points he wanted to make, and then I want to watch her on the Vanguard and see if she really did correct it. Because if she does, I gotta message her and say, hey, thank you for correcting that.
Engaging with my work, and if you have a story that you want me to cover, just reach out.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
No, Mitchell, it is 100% fair to attribute misinterpretations of the article to Taylor because the way that it's worded makes it completely reasonable to walk away with that conclusion.
Oh my goodness. That was it was quite the snark. Like snarky, not like talking about snark subreddits. I think you're just confused. Let me help.
Gonna say anything? All right, no, cool. All right, let's go to the Vanguard real quick, guys. Vanguard, Taylor, Lorenz. 22 hours ago? Is this
I guess it's time to segue into the chorus drama.
Did she talk to them? Is it a live stream? Someone got a link?
You guys are...
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. Members only. How much? We're doing it. Oh, wait, don't look. We'll do it. We're doing it live. We'll give them some money. No, it's members only. And it's great to have me as a member. I just gave him $3. So someone needs to super chat me $3. It's fine, guys. Alright, where are you, Taylor?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Pretty exciting time. We were just
wow.
You're pretty much the main
she gave the
Twitter.
Vanguard a wider camera angle. Clear bias. All right, let's go through this.
right now. So thank you for taking the time out of what we assume is a busy schedule.
Please. I've been the main character many times, unfortunately.
Let's move you guys.
Is
You're
there any
covering up
chance,
the
Taylor,
Vanguard.
Your mic's not plugged in. It sounds like
Oh.
you might be on computer audio or something.
Let me fix it. Hold on. You're right. Hold on.
Sweet.
Does it sound better?
No rush. No
Oh my
pressure.
God.
Oh yeah, we're in business now here. Let me go ahead and get in here.
All right.
With politics, mostly on the right. I covered the 2016 election. I was on the campaign trail. I was in the room at the Hilton the night that Trump won, with Trump and all the influencers. So I've covered this world for a long time. The Democrats finally, I think after losing multiple times over, now have decided to like really acknowledge the internet. And right after Kamala Harris's loss, I saw this story by Ken Bensinger in the New York Times.
Thank you, Melissa, for $2 for the membership to the Vanguard that I've now purchased. Whoa, is this anti-Semitism, guys? Look at this. Look at this Star of David here. Oh, you can't see it because you super chatted. Yeah, look at that. This is anti-Semitism, guys. These guys are clearly biased against Jewish people.
Like a couple
Let me
weeks
move
after
me
she
up
lost,
here.
about Brian Tyler Cohen in this new group called Chorus, where Brian Tyler Cohen is talking about how like they're going to fix this messaging problem that the Democrats have, and they're going to make the left Joe Rogan type stuff. So that kind of like perked my ear up, and I started to talk to people. I reached out to content creators in the network, and I started reporting on Chorus. And I actually did a story.
Okay, look at this real quick. Already, she has framed this kind of like this is a DNC thing. It's not. The DNC, as far as we know, no influence with the Chorus in the 1630. They probably coordinate and talk and work together at some points, but this is not a DNC thing, right? But she's talking about something that is a DNC thing. The finding the Joe Rogan, dumping $20 million into, trying to get the new masculine influencer. There's the war room, the DNC war room that I'm a part of, that they'll like say, hey, like, here's the talking points of today or whatever. Like, here's what's going on. Trump's doing this. This happened. Now, when I say talking points, I don't mean like, hey, you should report on this. This is the thing you need to say. It is, hey, here are 5 things that happened. And I said yesterday, I think if you only got your news from that would be bad, because you are now only framing and looking at what is worthy of talking about from the DNC. But she's already framed these two things together, which makes sense. You want to look at how we're trying to expand the media space, the left-wing media space, but they're not together. Let's just keep going.
For my newsletter about Chorus, just a couple months after that, New York Times piece about Chorus fundraising and taking content creators' images off social media and putting them in their fundraising decks without consent, and some of the dubious ethical questions around that.
Oh, real quick, we never talked about this. I think that's one of the most valid complaints, other than the dark money thing. Just saying, hey, some of these creators didn't know their faces were going to be used to advertise Chorus. Totally fine.
Yeah, that was Pat Albuquerque, right? They had her likeness. She's running in like Evanston, Illinois. I forget the name of that district, but yeah, that was a crazy thing to do.
BTC is maybe towing the party line. I don't watch enough of him to know.
Absolutely insane thing to do. And, so I wrote about that, and I sort of continued to report on the company and the organization. I'm very interested in these like Democrat influencer efforts, because I think like the Democrats, again, have finally woken up to the fact that they're like terrible online. And instead of recognizing that it's a policy problem, they are sort of obsessed with this idea that like if they could just pay the right mix of content creators, like suddenly they'll be popular, like people will like liberals again.
Right. Well, it's funny that you talk about the Democrats like completely misunderstanding the internet or like not really using it correctly, because I feel like when Zach and I were growing up, Obama obviously crashed onto the scene, and one of the key ways that he was able to build momentum was an understanding of how to harness the internet at that point of time in the 2000s to really build the buzz and to get donations, and like that was considered something that the Democrats—
That's the problem. They understand internet technology. They do not understand internet culture.
Had down right then, and it was like the Republicans that looked like the dinosaurs. They had like freaking John McCain.
She does have a cock chair.
Ads and like, oh, here's Sarah Palin, like be excited about this or whatever. So it's interesting. And where do you think the Democrats kind of lost their footing there to the point that?
All right, no, we got to talk about the article.
No, this was like, I mean, sure, Russia, I'm sure was doing shady shit, but like the MAGA movement was this like very organic top-down control and pushed these like kids online safety laws that would give the government essentially like complete.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into more of that in a second, but I did want to also ask you. You talked about the origin of this reporting, how you kind of went down this road, and what got you interested in this subject matter. I can't imagine that you were anticipating this level of backlash. Like even when I first saw this article, I think shout out to Ken
defending my honor.
He was also in those trends. But I was just like, what the fuck? And it hasn't stopped. People are still
not to like toot my own horn, but I've like broken so many big stories around influencers. I mean on the internet and
where's the substance?
They've done some dirty tactics in the past. Like the last time I reached out to them for comment for an earlier story, or like the influencers tried to like frame that as like a correction, which is actually hilarious, and that is something that the Trump people always do. So yeah, and the personal attacks.
Declined a request for comment, and then as strong accusations. And one of the things that
contract, as the story makes clear, we have Zoom call recordings. We have the screen recordings of the group chat of all of these influencers discussing their practices in the New York Times, in a cover story for the business section of the New York Times. And all the YouTubers circled the wagon, and they're like, well, shit, because they were uncomfortable with the terms that they were being asked to these group chat conversations. Which is hilarious to view them like spiraling out.
Like you're with
Wired lied. Like they lied. All of this is just untrue. It degrades trust in the institution of journalism, and it degrades trust in actual, really important accountability journalism.
I'm not going to watch through it at 0.25.
All of this has been justified by the David Pakman, by the Brian
Absolutely not.
Ilk, right? The brigade of people that are going to sim for them because of
I don't like when everyone shortens Brian Tyler Cohen's name, because I keep thinking it's Bitcoin.
Well, this is all justified because Donald Trump is ontologically evil, and anything that we do is in resistance to him is fine. Like, why are you talking about this in the face of fascism, right? They like immediately
go to this like accelerationist, like hyperbolic argument where it's like, well, if Donald Trump is able to do this, like, why can't we do this? Why can't the left just behave as
Oh my God, talk about the article.
Does, and what publishes an accusation when somebody speculates about something on YouTube, and we have to develop.
For my reporting on the far right, like that's like 80% of my work, and I remotely, and also. But it's what the right has pushed, and it's what the left
of right-wing
Tucker
media, the
Carlson?
reason by people that are on the left who are content creators who ostensibly agree that Democrats are better.
To mask and being like, what's so funny is she actually believes it. Like, yes, I do. That aggressive harassment, it's
Come
a lie,
on.
and it's also like it's such a gross thing because like
Vanguards are very left, I believe. They're like, you know, friends of many progressives.
Tyler Cohen has actually not like he has not had to go through any of that build. And every time I'm sure the next story that I do that's going to piss off some group on the internet, and I'm crazy online.
What am I doing? Does this have a transcript? No, no transcript. All right.
A little bit like I definitely post dumb shit on Twitter or whatever, but still a lot of people do that and they're not like constantly like, but like the next time I do some critical story, the next influencer is going to be like, and remember when she lied and Wired, and remember that, like it all just like,
You know, transaction history.
Fund is the same person funding.
All right. Well, this is good. I want to see them respond to BTC.
But let's just say we caught some people who really should have known better, and I wanted to get your direct response to this
Yeah, sure.
allegation because people like Destiny and all these fuckers use it as like the #1 gotcha. So I just wanted to have
Lorenz
you
says
react.
that the 1630 Fund is, quote, a powerful liberal dark money group. 1630 Fund is our fiscal sponsor. One of the largest documented donors to 1630 Fund is the same person funding Meteor's Reporters in Residence program, which Taylor Lorenz herself is a part of. And guess what her monthly stipend is? $8,000 per month. So
Okay, so that's true.
this is very funny.
Yeah.
Because you'll note that he doesn't say like it's just saying buzzwords and like it's this like illusion of like controversy. Okay, Lorraine Powell Jobs donates a shit ton.
No. Taylor, it's not the illusion of controversy. The idea is that it doesn't matter, and he's not criticizing you for that. But you're criticizing him from taking money from 1630, which has to the tune of $45 million from Omidyar. Let's see. How much does Omidyar pay him? Omidyar, $45 million to the 1630 fund. It's like, yeah, he funds you too. Now, the problem is, and you could talk about this, maybe she does, it's the dark money, and some people aren't disclosing, but the people who are disclosing also fund you. That's the point.
Money. Does that mean the
Of what he
Atlantic's
just said.
reporting on dark money is wrong? No, because the Atlantic itself isn't accepting dark money, isn't funded by dark money like schemes. I'm in a non-political, non-partisan investigative journalism fellowship with the
Is he implying the money is hidden with that? I didn't read it that way, but maybe if you saw it that way, it's like seeing it as more malicious. I think it's very clear. Well, to be clear, and I don't think she disclosed this well, I don't think she said, well, I've seen where the LLC money comes from, so I trust them. But that's not public. So we have to take her word on it that it's not being funded by nefarious sources.
But among some of the best investigative reporters out there, including people like Julia Black and Laura Kelly, who I worked with at The Atlantic, an amazing journalist, right? And it's public.
Yes, he is saying she's a
Which
hypocrite.
was like, it's public and disclosed, and it's funded by this guy, Pierre Omidyar. It's not
Funds The
funded.
Intercept for
Who
people in our
funds The
audience.
Intercept? Who funded Honolulu Civil Beat? Tons of journalists. He's funded tons of journalism projects. Like that. Like what? So what? He also gave money one time years ago to the 1630 fund in a personal.
Right, Grant.
manner with
That's
his
the
wife.
thing is like the chorus people. Well, no, actually, that's not true, Grant. They can't say I checked them out. What the chorus people could do is say, I asked 1630 to show us all their funding sources. Just it'd be under the scenes, and they told us it was all good, right?
Like, what does that have to do with?
No, hold on, Timber. I'm not saying Brian Tyler Cohen isn't trying to like throw snark back at her. I'm just saying he's not specifically saying you're taking dark money too. I think he's saying you take money from this same guy. Why are you getting on our case about it?
Me, like again, all of these billionaires that own every single major media org give money to dark money groups. That doesn't mean that the journalists reporting on.
Suri, factually, we do not know that she's done the work to see where the money's come from. That's just what she said. We don't know what she saw. And also, that doesn't mean she's lying. It just means that she might have a very like low bar for what they have to show her, and she just trusts them, which could be fine. But it also could be that they just like fucking showed her some bullshit, right? Like there's no legal documents for this.
Those dark money groups are like compromised. Those journalists aren't receiving, including myself. I'm not receiving a penny of dark money. And also, if you follow that logic, what is the implication? The implication is that this billionaire who funds journalism projects and political projects, like donated back in 2021 to 1630 Fund, 4 years later starts a fellowship where he funds a journalist to write a critical hit piece on the money that he gave. Like the fund that he gave money to? Like, what are you talking about? Like, if
Yeah,
anything,
but I think this is the complication here. I don't think Brian is implying that she is influenced by the Omidyar network to write things about the Omidyar network donating to 1630. He's just saying this isn't a big deal, that what you're calling us out for isn't a big deal, because look, you take it too. That's what I was reading out of that.
it shows that I'm even more editorially independent because I'm writing very critically about an investment that this billionaire funder did. Like, it makes no sense. And like, also it's public. The only reason he knows that I'm in that program is because it was immediately disclosed and all the information is on the website. And
To be fair, the reason that we know that Omidyar donates to 1630 is because it's also public, because he discloses. But he is not the only person. Now, if what she claims is true, that she understands every single source of who pays the LLC, I guess, but it's not public to us.
like reporters program even had to put out a statement being like these people are so stupid too, because dark money groups don't fund billionaires. Billionaires are rich. Billionaires fund dark money groups. Dark money groups don't fund billionaires. So it's not like Piero Midyar is getting all his money from 1630 Fund and putting it into journalism. Like it goes the opposite way. He's a billionaire funding things. And unfortunately, billionaires fund our entire media ecosystem, which is part of the reason why I went independent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that Midyar program? Like, I'm assuming whatever it is.
Let's see what she says about it. Is it the same thing she said on Destiny?
Your work. There's no daily check-ins, are there?
No, it's not a political. Like that's the other thing. It's not a political program.
Okay. This is what's important, all right? What's the daily check-in? The daily check-in is not, hey, let's make sure you're being progressive. The daily check-in is, hey, we're putting you through a fucking boot camp trying to get you to be a better creator. So every day we're going to check in on your progress and make sure you're doing a good job. Not, you know, the fucking Gestapo coming around with their clipboard and like, oh, have you met your quota? It's, hey, we want to show that you're having growth in the same way you have fucking like, hey, let's check on your fucking homework and see like, hey, make a short and see how it like drives engagement, because that's what we're teaching you to do. And tomorrow we'll check in on how your short did and we can talk about like whether or not your short did good. Like these things are so obvious. And so they just implied, well, she doesn't have daily check-ins because she's not getting the talking points fed to her that she must be, you know, saying, which is like what they think is what's going on with Chorus, which is not happening. So let's see if she actually talks about that specific check-in.
There's no strings attached. It's literally a like a couple.
She said no strings attached in contradiction to there are daily check-ins. That's not a straw man, Bo.
Few months long. I can't remember exactly how many months we are, but it's like from now until the end of the year. And you get a stipend every month for reporting, and it's to support investigative journalism. Full stop. And there's
Which you actually do. You're actually a journalist, unlike Brian Tyler Cohen, who's a fucking...
Melissa, they weren't paying the low-view people $8,000. $8,000 was going to the big people with millions of followers, and I think those people specifically were not learning about engagement. Those people were the mentors in this program.
Slot machine.
And also, I'm using this money to travel to, for instance, like a school district where I'm reporting on some civil liberties violations regarding these cell phone bans. Like
I agree, Zuri. It doesn't have to be malicious.
My reporting specifically for Midyar is about civil liberties and technology. And so it's like, it's to fund that work because nobody funds that work. And it's so hard for investigative journalists to like take on that cost because it's a cost losing endeavor to do investigative journalism.
To be clear, so it's to fund that work because no one funds on that work. That is political, okay? And people say everything's political, but this is especially political. It's like, hey, there's a dearth of money in people looking at civil liberties and investigative tech journalism. That's political. There's a reason why there isn't as much money in that, okay? But doesn't really matter. I don't think that's a slight against her to say it's political. I just don't like that she's saying, well, it's not political, so it's okay. Like, it's also money from a place that we can't verify, but we just have to take your word.
Yeah, not only is it totally open, you can talk about it. There's no NDA. They announced the program. Like, it's totally transparent, and it's not tied to dark money even in the
I
slightest.
see what you're
I know
saying,
where every
Melissa.
single dollar of my
you're agreeing with me. You're unbanned.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that's pretty by the numbers, right? And to use another Piero Midyar funded, First Look Media and The Intercept, right? I remember Jimmy Dore used to go after them all the fucking time. Right?
Choose this. I'm not streaming on Twitch because I was looking at Destiny, and Destiny is blacklisted off Twitch, so I can't do it.
If you go to fucking The Intercept's funding model, right?
Zero. David Pakman is one of the mentors. I'm pretty sure. Now we can look this up. If he was one of the people being paid $8,000 a month to do like fuck all, like I don't know why, because he does not need that assistance. But that's the thing is people like Majority Report were like, why would you pay David Pakman $8,000 a month? He already has this whole thing. He's got all these sponsors. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't really make sense to give him $8,000 unless you're just like, I want to support your project and spread this message more. But I don't think that would change much unless it helped him buy like studio equipment or whatever. I think he was one of the mentors in this program. Thank you, Death Awaits, for becoming a member for 2 months.
You can see exactly how much everybody's paid. You can see exactly, it's all transparent. It's like a 501c, whatever the hell. You know what I mean? It's all transparent. It's a non-for-profit media organization. And I wanted to just get your thoughts because you made a really great point. There's this intentional misunderstanding of the different sources of funding that you can get as a reporter. And there's been a big lurch towards, you should be 100% independent.
All right.
I don't really
Talk
have
about the
any
article.
With some of the top defamation attorneys in the
meantime.
Okay, you're being sued.
Literally a freelance journalist that's like, thank God I have this like fellowship going for the rest of the year. But
freaking day.
Okay, yeah. David Pakman does seem shitty when he pretends not to know how to pronounce APAC. Like, I only learned about APAC in the last year, and I know about it because people are talking about it. Did you literally just read it now? That's crazy.
Don't have a high overhead. We're just two guys. Whenever we have tried to get out of the apartment and be like, let's go on the order for our local NPR, and it has gone so far.
It's just
By the way, the reason I was looking at the transcript, because I don't want to search through this, but I'm going to look for the word Israel or Gaza.
Virulent misogynist.
And then you have...
And pedophilia.
That he was pedo.
And pedophilia. It wasn't his entire...
Okay, wait, no, this is something else.
I think it's so important to give young people a voice online, and not going to go to their parents. A lot of they're talking to a journalist is because they're seeking accountability and they're seeking a voice and they want somebody out. So
wait, has anyone called him APAC man? Surely, yeah. Oh, Melissa, it's right after I said it.
It's very silly. Now, when kids are under 13, I do generally talk to, but
piker? Like, is it because you said positive things about Hassan once or twice and now
manifestos? Because I've seen the way that like mainstream media warps these people's manifestos, and here in LA, and our mutual friend had reached out and like they're
troll, made a few bizarre and edgy attempts at being funny.
Okay, this is just shitting on Ethan Klein.
Out of that, right? But there's a big difference between Hassan Piker's income and my income, right? There's a ginormous get mad, right? And
everything I've taken also is like taken in the worst faith or whatever. Like people can be like,
journalists are supposed to be this cold, like,
and if people want
I would say too, like a layman, right, who's just covering, you know, when I was like, oh, I'm interviewing Taylor Lorenz, he was.
of course. Yeah,
I've been doing like cable news, like TV hits and stuff. So I'm like, now I'm on the internet, I can say what I want. So thank you.
Really appreciate it, Taylor. You're welcome back. Aren't familiar, hit the join button.
Is that it? She didn't debunk it at all. Unmember. Hold on, guys. Let me bring up the other one because I want to. Let me show you what these guys were saying yesterday.
You guys are so audience captured.
Let me show you what these guys were saying.
Journalistic talk or out.
From basically everyone in this article that was exposed, but also a lot of the people in that orbit, the way they reacted to this, you would have thought that Taylor Lorenz had published, you know, nude photos of their children or something. They're like freaking out, full panic mode, getting so defensive. And it's just like, geez, guys, you're really kind of, you know, showing your ass here.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. So to take a few of those things at a time, one of the big things about this is not so much that people were getting paid, right? Lots of people get paid to do this, but if you read that second portion right there, it says all they have to do is keep it a secret, right? And agree to restrictions behind their content. And I think that's the first
membership canceled. Sorry, guys. Now I'm going to look.
And most important thing to do this, but if you read that second portion right there, it says all they have to do is keep it a secret, right? And agree to restrictions behind their content. And I think that's the first and most important thing to just kind of harp on, right? The fact that this was intentionally done behind the scenes, right? This was intentionally done to create the impression that these people were organically coming to these conclusions, right? The idea being
okay. If this doesn't prove my fucking point, I don't know what to tell you guys. These people just said this chorus thing was intentionally, secretly hidden, based on their conclusion from the article, secretly hidden from the public so that it would seem like the authentic content creators were coming to these conclusions on their own. That is the implication that they just got just from the title, okay? That is not what happened. Chorus is training people how to spread out their like messages, get more of a reach, you know, make thumbnail. They're not giving talking points and saying make content on this. They're not saying you have to talk about this thing. But that is what the two people that she just talked with were having that conversation about. Now, to be clear, I don't think she failed to correct them because they didn't bring this. They didn't say this thing, as far as I could tell in that video. But, like, they just went off on a completely different rail. And she was talking about how she was correcting. She needs to go on this show. She needs to go on Majority Report and say, no, these people were not restricted from talking about Israel-Palestine. These people were not getting talking points from the DNC. But look at what these people are saying.
Cool to be a Democrat. I hadn't heard of 90%, 95% of the content creators that were implicated in this. I'm familiar with Brian Tyler Cohen. I'm familiar with David Pakman, but it's a short list, right? This has a lot of overlap, though, with a beat that we normally follow, right? If you guys have watched The Vanguard for a long time, you guys know, one, we do not take any corporate dollars. We do not read a single advertisement. We are 100% fan funded. We've never negotiated with any of these kinds of corrupt organizations, and we never would do that, right? But you look at this here, and a bunch of the people that are here,
right, kind of Grant, it is heavily implied. That's the point. It's the way the article's written.
I don't know, never really come into contact with unless you were on TikTok or maybe already in this like weird democratic machine, but they don't want people to know that they're from a weird democratic machine. They just want to give the illusion. They want you to have the impression that this
hold on. First of all, wait, Teflon. If the claims were false, then Wired would have already been sued. First of all, the claim that they said a claim that is suable. If they wrote an article that said if this wasn't true, they were paid to come to certain conclusions to be authentic, which is not what it says in the article. That's a suable thing. Now, first of all, a lawsuit might be coming. David Pakman's trying to sue. But second of all, the article doesn't say that. That is the implication from the way the article is written. So the problem with the article is that it's driving people to incorrect conclusions, or at least not factually backed up conclusions, if it is correct.
TikToker that came to this position like Joe Biden's really cool, man. Kamala Harris just gets me.
I have no idea. I don't know who and why they have to keep anyone's secret. But it's irrelevant to my point.
I'm like, Kamala, what do you think that would be like? Oh my God, they're just so cool and young. Donald Trump is so old and gross. They want you to think that that's just like, you know, an organic lane in TikTok. That's why it has to be covert. And that was the first red flag to me. The other thing being what you've highlighted here, that, you know. No,
Jake and Bake, Chorus didn't even pay $8,000 to most of these people. There was a very few number of these creators that were the 8,000 people. I think those were either based on what I know, the accelerator people that were like, hey, we're going to be the mentors. We already figured this shit out, and we're going to help other progressive people and uplift them in this like daily check-ins and all these meetings. or it's just the people with huge audiences who it's like, hey, like, this is how much your fucking asking fee is, or whatever the fuck. I don't know about the second one, but the first one's so obvious. Like, a bunch of these people are mentors.
These are just a list of influencers.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought that this was going to go on down to something different relating to Gaza. But the other big red flag that I noticed was all of the people that I was familiar with never talked about Palestine or Israel in the build-up to the 2025 or 2024 election.
No, fuck no. Their whole point of these creators was for the so that their audience watching them would think, oh, I guess Gaza's not even that big of a deal because these people don't really talk about
Look
it
at
very
that.
much. And
The whole point of this whole program was for the people to authentically think that Gaza's not a big deal. That is their claim. It doesn't say that in the article, but they are coming to that conclusion. Now, like I said, I did skip around, but I don't think Taylor talked about Israel, Palestine, Gaza stuff in our talk with these people. Like, they talked about the article, I watched that whole part, and then they go off on the Ethan drama and the Ro Khanna drama.
For the ones that are getting exclusively floated and artificially pushed by this $8,000 a month program, which also included all these weird networking sessions and like training sessions.
Weird and
to make sure
networking
everyone's
and
on the same
checking.
fucking page. Because again,
To
as I
make
said
sure
earlier,
everyone's on the same page. They have no evidence of this. This was not said in the article. This is when everyone's on the same page politically. This is, hey, it's an incubator program and we're checking in on you in the same way your fucking teacher asks you, hey, did you get the fucking lesson yesterday that was how to, I don't know, make a fucking thumbnail? Did you do a good job?
these people are propagandists. It's time that we just be honest about that, Zach. David Pakman is literally not a commentator. He's not an analyst.
And I'll say this. This is propaganda. What I do is technically propaganda. What all these people do is propaganda. So that's a fair claim.
He's not an opinion editorialist. He's a fucking propagandist. Same goes with everyone else on this list. David Pakman is admittedly the one that I'm most familiar with because he was a mainstay of like Bernie Bro YouTube. He was one of the OG progressive tubers back in the day. I used to enjoy David Pakman's content back in 2015, 2016 when he was more of a radical anti-establishment Bernie Bro. But very quickly after the 2016 election, it became clear the direction Pakman was going in. And that was the direction that would most enrich him. The one that would get him access to almost 10 grand a month from this organization, in addition to a shit ton of other sponsorships, some of which we've criticized Pakman for taking in the past, like, for example, crypto stuff. But again, it's time to be honest about who these people are. And specifically as a podcast that is 100% independent, we pride ourselves on that, as you guys know. And we do genuinely consider ourselves an alternative to corporate media, an alternative to establishment media. Yeah, that's something we're fucking proud of. And it does piss me off to see all these phonies and fakes pretending to also be independent creators, journalists, reporters, whatever, when in reality they are just propagandists. And Zach, not even good propagandists. That's what I find to be crazy about all of this. Do you really think that any of these people contributed to the Democrats performing well in the last election? Not that they did perform well, but are we really supposed to believe that, oh yeah, Kamala
also, these
lost?
guys are just like super uninformed, clearly, because this all happened after the election, and they're like pretending like this has been a thing that's happening for years, but I don't know if they've actually read the article.
By even more if it weren't for the efforts of fucking David Pakman and Olivia Giuliana, who are some of the most cringy, just lame, most uninteresting people. Like, if I was just a normie who was apolitical, who didn't know a goddamn thing about politics, and who frankly didn't care that much about social issues or whatever, and I just started scrolling my fucking TikTok one day, and all of a sudden I'm being subjected to Olivia Giuliana and David Pakman, that might turn me into a fucking Republican, just because of the aversion to their smug attitudes, to their annoying...
I will agree with this. I think Olivia Giuliana is incredibly cringe, and I've never enjoyed David Pakman content. I find it incredibly droll.
Basic, bland talking points. Like, I genuinely have the opinion that the majority of normies, the majority of independents will be turned off of this content, that it will actually have the opposite effect that it's supposed to, which is theoretically to push public opinion to the left towards the Democratic Party side. I genuinely think it's counterproductive. Maybe if they were funding good content creators who were actual naturals and who had
No,
charisma
Teflon,
and
it doesn't. It doesn't do that. You said it's not that they're being paid to do or say anything, which, by the way, these guys think is what happened based on how they read this article, which is not true. You're right. The contract forbids them from endorsing or denouncing certain creators and politicians without permission. No, it doesn't. It just says loop us in. That's all it says. It doesn't say you can't do it if you don't loop us in. They just said, hey, you need to loop us in or we'll kick you out of the program, right? That's not saying, oh, we might say no and then you can't go talk to them. It's just saying, hey, if you're going to go do your own thing independently, tell us. That's it. Not permission, just tell us.
That might be one thing, but I genuinely think this is counterproductive. I think this actually hurts the left. I think this hurts the Democratic Party.
I've seen that part of the contract. Taylor Lorenz read that part of the contract out loud in her conversation with Destiny. It is linked in a screenshot in the TikTok video that is in the description.
The Democratic Party, don't get me wrong, I want the Democrats to win. As much as I criticize them, that's why I fucking criticize them. Because I believe that constructive criticism is what makes a movement stronger. That's what makes a political party stronger. Not an endless feedback loop of sycophantic fucking praise and propaganda.
Well, 100%. And I think the reality is that two people who do this, I would say relatively professionally, right? It is our only source of income.
Guys, if you have any evidence, and this will change my mind in argument, that Chorus had the ability to say, no, you can't talk to that person, actually. If you loop me in and then I say no, that's asking permission. That's a different thing.
we cover online political media. That is our beat, right? Particularly online left political media, right? That is what we spend day in and day out covering. And I hadn't heard of 95% of these assholes, right? So how effective could it be? I do not go out of my way to consume conservative media outside of the PBD podcast when we want to get a laugh. Maybe I'll check out Nick Fuentes for the
Are
show.
they going to talk about Israel?
Stuff that people like. That's not what they're doing. Why? So that they can create the illusion that there is not that gap between the base and where the leadership is, right? That they want to pretend that the electorate is right where the leadership is. So they want you to be fooled that the economy was going.
Right. So look at how the way they're framing this, which is just not the case. They're saying we want to artificially pay people to toe the Democratic Party line so that it seems like the base is more on board because people will listen to them and not us because those people are more authentic. And not, which I think is the real reason, because I've talked to people like from Progressive Victory and all these other orgs who are trying to do similar things like Brian Tyler Cohen is doing, like, hey, we need to give more money to people who are authentic, who are already reporting on this, and give them more of a voice, because right now they're being completely outspent by like the Charlie Kirks of the world. That's not saying you have to do this, you have to do that. That's saying, hey, let's actually have our own fucking ecosystem. And it's just ridiculous that the way that people are walking away from this is, oh my God, like the shills, and they were paid to have these opinions, and that's why they love Alyssa Slotkin.
Great when Joe Biden was president. They want you to be fooled that Joe Biden's really
Zero. I linked that video. I don't believe that's what Taylor is claiming.
Care of it, and it's a really tough situation. We have to support our ally Israel. They want you to be fooled into thinking that you know, the climate change is being addressed, right? Joe Biden went through it for a time. There was a real effort to be like, oh, we're really doing something about climate change. It was a total hoax, guys, right?
Joe Biden didn't do enough, and I'm a fucking climate radicalist, guys, but like the Climate Reduction Act so much more than we ever could have gotten out of any other fucking president, and it didn't go far enough. But it's like, it's the same thing where it's like Joe Biden trying to pretend, or Obama trying to pretend that he's like universal health care, but he only gave us Obamacare. It's like, we barely got that despite all their efforts, and that wasn't because of Obama, that was because of Republicans.
Kamala Harris is president, right? We are going to make
these guys are kind of brain rotty.
If Kamala Harris is president, we are going to find a path to amnesty for immigrants if Kamala Harris is president, right? These are real alternatives that the American people. He's taken all this sponsorship money. He's taken his chorus money. He has 17 sponsors listed on his website. We can throw it up right here. All right. It's not like he needed the money, but he wanted more money. He wanted that extra $8,000.
See, they don't even know about the mentorship program. Okay, I've seen enough. I've already seen this. Okay, guys, my point is that the way that people are running away from this is due to the language of Lorenz's article. Now, I'm happy that she's coming out on and either showing that that was never her intention and correcting it, or even if she did walk it back, at the very least still correcting it. So I think that's good. But the damage is done. People think that now all of these people, you can look at Brian Tyler Cohen's comments, you can look at Hackman's comments, like, you're a paid shill, you're a paid shill. Now, if they're shills, they're shills, okay? Like, but that has nothing to do with what is reported on this article. And like, we have yet to establish that. And to be clear, at the end of the day, and this is going to undermine my whole stream, I am one of those accelerations people. I think Trump is such a threat that I would say, look, if I could pay some homeless guy who is completely apolitical 10 grand a month to go be the most charismatic pro-democratic person, fucking do it. But that's not what's happening.